good enough. Like, Ron O'Gara will bring us past the line, lads.
All we need is them. All we need is them.
OTB AM. OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
Yeah, as the girl said in the sting there, we love a bandwagon because we're not very good at lots of stuff. And that is kind of true, but today we could actually qualify for the Euros, or at least that's what it says in the script in front of me. It's Ireland v Switzerland later on, and over the next 2 hours we're going to discuss the chances of us winning tonight, which is absolutely nil, obviously, and Daniel McDonnell and Richie McCormack will be in Geneva. That's before 9 a.m. Before that, we're going to go off to Tokyo for the latest Irish Rugby press conference ahead of our probable loss against the Kiwis as well. I'm in great form this morning, obviously. But first, let's hear from Mick McCarthy. Here he is on Aaron Connolly and whether he'll do what he should have done last Saturday, and it is starting tonight against Switzerland.
Well, that's the question, isn't it? I mean, I think it's asking me would I risk him. There's some suggestion that there is. I don't think there is. After he's now made his debut, he had a cameo and did well in it, and I think he'd be feeling comfortable about himself. So, no, I don't think it would be a risk at all to start him. Or someone to support him, yes. I wouldn't want him to be isolated up there, that's for sure. They play three at the back, and I think putting Aaron into that, if I decided to do it, putting him up on his own would be a big ask, I think, on his starting full start.
And Kasper Schmeichel obviously had a big role to play in the group on Saturday, but his dad, Peter, made a few interesting comments. Just have a look at Seamus Coleman's face if you're watching this on YouTube as Mick deals with the criticism of Schmeichel.
Are you aware of Peter Schmeichel's comments to Jan Sommer after the Denmark-Switzerland game where he said Ireland aren't very good, and what do you make of them?
Well, I'm aware of them now.
His comments were, I've seen Ireland play and they are so bad. Switzerland can take a lot of positives from their performance in Copenhagen. They have some really talented players. If they play like that against Ireland, the win will come.
That's very kind of him.
Anything further to add?
There are so many people who have opinions on me, and my team and my players. I'm not bothered, and I certainly don't respond to them.
Let's hear from the Swiss boss Pekovic on the game tonight. Actually, no, we have Damien Delaney instead, and Damien was talking last night on Off the Ball in relation to the game tonight.
I think the position that Mick McCarthy has got the squad into, with one win from the last two games, is probably exactly where Mick McCarthy wanted to be and saw himself being before it started. I don't think anybody's in the country has an issue with where we're at in terms of winning one from the last two. I think people have an issue with how we're doing it and the way we're going about it. I wouldn't say we really went to win the game against Georgia. He played that as if it don't get beat, and if we win it, then fabulous. But we're going to win it with a little bit of luck, or a set piece, or a counter attack, or a refereeing decision, or something like this. But I think his main aim was not to lose it. And I think it's going to be the exact same for the next two games. Don't lose the game, don't lose the game. And you can't really have a go at Mick McCarthy for that in my book, because Mick McCarthy's come in and done exactly what he probably told the SRA he was going to do. So I'm very much of the opinion that, you can't shoot a leopard for having spots.
Yeah, we're going to go over to Tokyo in a minute or two, but Damien Delaney also spoke about Aaron Connolly and as to whether he should start this evening in Geneva.
He looked very bright, looked bundle of energy, he looked full of confidence. He looked like a player that's been, what's the best way to put this, kind of untouched from the dreary kind of toughness of professional football. After a while, you've ups and downs and stuff, but he looked really, really fresh and he looked really, really enthusiastic. Judging by what Mick said there, I heard that earlier, that, he's not considering playing him from the left. He's considering him playing him as a 9. And I'm not sure that he is a 9, but look, if it was a straight shot between James Collins and Aaron Connolly, I'd play Aaron Connolly. I just would, just for his sheer exuberance. He has got that little bit about him where he's just full of confidence at the minute. And he might not be as good as James Collins at certain things. If, like Mick's talking about there, if they get isolated, maybe he can hold the ball up, he can run down lost causes a little bit better. But I just play him because he's a player that is clearly full of beans, and he might. I think you get more out of him than you would James Collins. That's my opinion.
And I guess the argument would be as well, particularly given what he did against Spurs the weekend before last as well, that you're basically picking a player who's in form and has been among the goals, which Ireland are very short of across the squad.
Yes, but look, I mean, he plays in a team in Brighton that plays a certain way, and he has a certain job to fulfil there. And he definitely suits the way Brighton play, hence the reason that he's been given a start by the Brighton manager. But I'm not sure he's going to be a mixed type of player in these types of games.
I don't know if it's me, but I think Will O'Callaghan genuinely looks about 10 years younger when he shaves his beard. Maybe there's something in that for the rest of us as well. But Pekovic, the Swiss boss, he had some nice words to say, I think, about Ireland.
Peter Schmeichel told the goalkeeper Jan Sommer in Denmark not to worry about tomorrow because Ireland is such a bad team. What does the keeper think? What does the coach think about that?
Well, everyone is entitled to their own opinion. What can I say about that? I saw Ireland when they played in Denmark. They weren't that bad at all. It's down to how you find the team for your own opinion. What is important tomorrow is these little decisions that we make, and they actually decide games, little intricacies. We know how Ireland will come towards us, and so we've got to respond with more power and then give our best as we always do.
Right, let's go straight over to the Hilton Tokyo Bay Hotel where Cian Healy is talking in the Irish press conference ahead of the game against New Zealand.
Quick with it and stuff, so we're drilling hard on that and how to defend that and then how to go at it ourselves. And scrum-wise, I think you just have to be smart about it because they're quite a tactical, clever scrum. So, it's hard to drill for, but you have to be a bit ready for everything.
Ian, you played a lot of games against the All Blacks. What was the focus when you can remember, and what was the most standout?
Probably the next one, I hope.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not really looking back on any of them. They're gone for me now, and none of them have been at a World Cup, so they don't matter an awful lot.
Okay, that's fair enough. Were they very good in educational for you said, or just technical? Kind of help you get to where you are today.
Is that the line you're looking for?
No.
I don't know. Every test is something you're learning about yourself, and I suppose a couple of the earlier ones you'd probably understand how good they are at finishing a game for the final 20 minutes. That's probably what sets them apart a lot from teams. So. You need a longer performance than a 60-minute performance. It has to be a complete game performance and screwed on for the whole thing because they're so dangerous. If you have a blip for a period of the match, they'll take the shots.
In the drop in temperature, do you think that will help you go for the full 80 minutes?
I won't ever do 80 minutes anymore, I don't think. Gone are the days where allowed to do that. But I suppose it's probably going to help both teams. New Zealand's not too hot either, I don't think. So, it's probably more pleasant to play in, and both teams have a bit more free-flowing rugby.
I was just thinking a second that you guys did some things like the speed that the All Blacks might not have seen you. Are any of those things specifically for the All Blacks? And how excited are you about putting up?
I'm not telling you. They're up my sleeve. No, we've got some new stuff that we haven't done before, and it's up to them to figure it out.
Are you making the changes that have made the protocol mobility in attack? You've seen that?
Have they picked their team?
Oh, the squad in general.
All right. Like anyone they pick, they have such a good pool of players to pick from. They're dangerous, and they're going to pose threats. So you just have to give due respect to whoever it is on the day, and have your detail work done and know them inside out before you go out against them. If you're to think any were lesser than the other, you're putting yourself into a dangerous position.
Yeah, I think the big guys potentially do from the
That's tough for him, and we felt for him a bit, but he's a good player and adds a lot to the team. But anyone else that's ready to step into there is equally as good here. We've got a great squad at the moment over here, and I'm very confident in everyone else. And it's Bundy's showed us squad man today. He was trained well and put everyone under pressure and kept working towards the greater good of the team. And that's what you want from a scenario like that. He's not sitting in his room with his head between his hands. He's working hard for the team to go forward.
Beating the All Blacks twice recently, how much confidence you guys take from that?
Like I said, it's going to be a different kettle of fish at a World Cup. They've gone the whole way a couple of times, and we haven't. So it's a huge challenge for us, and we're looking forward to it.
What do you mean by clever tactical? What's that actually? Does that come across in the game?
Just different ways of hitting or absorbing a hit or angles or anything. There's so many different tactics, and like even the first one at the weekend there, you'll see not a lot of weight came on my side, and it spun the scrum, and it was a penalty. So that was a bit naive from us to go that hard early out. So we need to be a bit smarter as a scrum to get full use of the strength we have in our pack. I haven't looked at much. I haven't looked at it yet. Like I said, I'm going game by game, and yesterday is the travel day. I went over all of our stuff. Today we're only finished training a while, so the next night and tomorrow and stuff, I'll get a look over the players.
In the obviously everyone knows Joe. We great features. Won't be working more than enough. He once led a hack against Ireland. How much better than being?
Fiki's a good lad. He's got a different perspective than a lot, and I've worked with him for a long time through Leinster and through here, and he's added an awful lot. And like that, like I said, he's got a kind of different way of talking about it, and probably uniting a full scrum into wanting to know a bit more about it. Usually it's just the front rows that want to know more, so getting the back lads involved and wanting to know how we can get better is important.
The back side, the way they performance actually, you can't see that. Can you feel the difference?
Definitely, yeah. It's when they inside out know what we're looking to do or looking not to do, even then you can feel their changes in body shape or pressure wise or even just energy before the scrum. You know when they're on and when they're ready to go for it. And luckily at the moment that's most of the time, and everyone's glued in, so it's a nice place to be.
We've seen the benefit of our set piece play that you guys have, especially when it's going for the full edge strike. Gives an extra support.
Yeah, we've got such talent outside. It'd be a sin to let them down and not give them a good platform to play off. So that's where we get most of our pressure from, is from 9 and 10 barking at us if we don't get our scrum and line out right. So we want to do that, and we want to put the team on the best platform. And if it means keep the ball in the scrum and get a penalty and do it that way, or if it means have a solid scrum and get the ball out and leave them play, then that's what we're looking for.
How important was the most point for the match?
I think it's pretty important. It was a physical game, and it wasn't as fast, but I think it teed a lot of people up for big hits and trying to evade big hits as well. So it was pretty good for us. It wasn't that sharp. We wouldn't get away with a lot of that stuff this week, but that's different context. So we'll nail down on the finer details this week, and we already kind of have, and training was good for that today. So we can take a bit of confidence from that physical battle we had.
Yeah, Johnny said yesterday that Saturday would be the biggest game of his career. It's early in the week, I know, but is that the vibe we're getting? Is it feeling like that to you at the moment?
Yeah. definitely. It's kind of do or die game. So I think everyone understands that and knows the position we're in and the opportunity of what we have to do. And it's not a case of looking to get people to buy in. Everyone wants in. Everyone's trying to get in, and that's going to pose big challenges for the coaches to pick that team because everyone's put their hand up and everyone wants to be involved. Okay, folks. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Where's Andrew Porter?
Don't know. He was
he
late.
Just didn't show up.
I know.
Andrew, where are you? Poor Cian Healy had to take all the questions.
Yeah, I think.
Felt a bit sorry for him. It's like, would Joe Schmidt be strict enough that he'd reprimand him for just being late for a press conference?
Yeah, they probably decided not to use him this morning for some whatever reason. Whatever reason.
Joe like, nah, just don't turn it up.
The Irish Rugby team don't let things like that go.
No.
Randomly wrong.
Richard Cooper's Joe Schmidt is as good as the impressions he's done over the many years. I actually think it could be in the top 3. It's that good.
It's as good as his Joe Malloy.
His Joe Malloy is like, now, Schmidt's is probably technically better because it's so on the button.
I think his Rory Best is really good as well. Yeah, his Schmidt is sensational. His Eddie is my favourite.
The Rowan O'Gara one wasn't bad, just a general kind of exasperation. Do we have what's coming up on the show? We do. So we've kicked off at 7:30. Obviously, we had that rugby press conference minus Porter. So Healy and Porter won't be happening, but Healy happens. And we're going to go through the sports pages now. Rugby World Cup 2019. So Louise Galvin is coming into studio. Isn't she?
Yeah, she's in, yeah.
And she's going to chat about our chance against New Zealand. Japan dispatch as well, so more coming up from the land of the rising sun. Irish racing, so Aidan O'Brien's actually 50 tomorrow, one of the freshest looking 50-year-olds in sport, I'd say.
It really is.
Unbelievable.
Doesn't get flustered, doesn't get stressed, does he?
No, I think it's just healthy living. Like, he just, he doesn't drink, doesn't smoke. He's in the fresh air all the day, basically every day, around horses. There he is. That's actually a recent photo. It was actually an interesting, we'll talk about this later, it was an interesting day yesterday because his son Joseph got to 500 winners as a trainer, and his son Dunica didn't so much as win the jockey's title, but he's effectively stretched so far clear that it'll be his last jockey's title. But he's going training next year as well, so it's just this future, a dystopian future for other trainers that they're going to just be so dominant, especially if they can look as healthy at 50 as their dad.
There's a mystique around the O'Briens, isn't there?
There is. There actually is. Just genius, really. Particularly Aidan. What else are we coming up on the rest of the show? Ireland versus Switzerland. Looking forward to that. Dan and Richie McCormack. Dan did say, I'm willing to come on, just don't do it too early. Because, we are in Switzerland and so on, which is a lot more expensive than Tbilisi. Bloody hell.
You had a good time. Forgot about that. You were actually travelling as a fan. You weren't working as a journalist this weekend.
It was great.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah, I'm pretty groggy now, to be honest, but I'd highly recommend.
You were raving about Tbilisi.
It was amazing, absolutely amazing. Like, really cheap, really friendly people, and different to anywhere I've ever been. And I was in Tbilisi before, but it felt completely different. It actually feels like it's modernised, but has a real Caucasus charm about it, or something like that. Yeah, you were in Clare.
We're down in Clare this weekend, yeah. Telling Jerry yesterday we climbed. We hiked to the highest point in Clare.
Which is?
Moylussa.
Moylussa.
Overlooks Kilkee and... or Killaloo, sorry.
I can't say I've heard of it.
Yeah, I hadn't either up until then.
Not that high?
It's like 550 metres or something. It's not that high. Well, actually, afterwards I checked out that it turns out the Mead is one of the lowest, highest peaks in the country.
Right.
I want to do that. I want to climb all the highest peaks in the country.
Yeah.
It's good fun.
And just coming up then at the rest of, after Dan and Richie, we'll have the sports news and we'll have Phil's picks as well, and then that'll bring us more or less to 9:30. Do you want to start with the papers? Because there's so much in these papers today in terms of not only the fact the 2 Ireland games coming up, but I don't know. Should we start with the disgrace in Sofia last night? I went to bed quite early in advance of this show, and I was in bed about 10 minutes. In England, I think we're 2-0 up, but the fireworks started in Dublin 8, so it was like the worst possible accompaniment to going to sleep. But I woke up to see that nobody was talking about the fact that they'd won 6-0.
I know. I had the game on. I watched most of the first half and kind of was working away and watching the game at the same time. So you look up every so often and you go, why have they stopped? But clearly they stopped 2 or 3 times because of the racist chants and the racist abuse that was happening.
And not only that, but like Nazi salutes as well. And this thing kind of, I suppose it can be overstated in that it could be 3 people doing it, 3 absolute idiots who shouldn't be there. But at the same time, it's really difficult to know what the players should do. And the England players seem to behave with an awful lot of dignity. This is the mirror. UEFA must act after Sophia racist shame. Raheem Sterling and his England teammates defy disgusting racist abuse to hammer Bulgaria and make qualification a formality. Moan all you want. McCarthy ignores the begrudgers and sets sights on win. This one's very interesting, Tommy. Ryan Giggs and Daniel James have been slammed for exploiting concussion rules. Can you explain what happened there?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. Actually, while you were holding up the Irish mirror there, we had the English version up on screen and had kick him out on it.
Yeah.
So obviously we have Mick McCarthy in the back of ours, but we'll come back to Daniel James in just a second because there's a lot happening in the English papers.
Yeah, so it's actually on the top of it's on the top of and there you have the front page where England stand tall against racists, but the Daniel James and Ryan Giggs makes the back page of the English version, the British version.
So Daniel James gets absolutely poleaxed, he gets nailed, and he's lying prone on the ground, and you're thinking,
this could be a bad concussion.
He's gone here, he's knocked out, he's out cold. And when the replays are slowed down, he doesn't actually get hit in the head. And he admits afterwards that he was just being cute. Lie down there, lads. The boys have the momentum.
Giggs said when the physios came over, there was no problem. He stayed down and was a bit streetwise. He was showing a bit of his nous. He passed all the concussion tests half-time. And then the admission angered the chief executive of Headway, a brain injury charity. Peter McCabe said, Ryan Giggs' claim that the players being streetwise was staying down, appearing to have not been knocked out, is shocking. If that's the case and James was acting, it raises serious questions about the players' understanding of the seriousness of concussion.
I think it's going to become a bigger and bigger issue in football, in GAA. It can't happen in rugby, because in rugby, if you've got a head injury or if there's any suspicion of a head injury, you're either off for 10 minutes or you're gone for 3 or 4 weeks. And, in football, they're starting to get a bit smarter around it. And, in the NFL, there's all these massive lawsuits to do with concussion. Who knows what's going to happen down the line when it comes to football? There's been little bits and pieces happening around that.
I think they're still a bit kind of blasé about it, and the same in Gaelic games, because 100%. Not understanding maybe the dangers involved.
I know for a fact that if I'm in a game of football and a team have a run on us, it's said to you when you're under 12, and it's still said to you now, lie down.
Lie down, yeah.
And how do you get a referee to stop a game? You lie down and you hold your head.
Yeah.
Every referee's going to be looking at me now thinking there's nothing wrong with that lad. But that's just the way it is.
It's a fairly benign, dirty art in terms of just killing the game a little bit and giving yourself a bit of respite. I think any manager with a bit of cop on would probably be inclined to say the same thing.
I would agree with Ryan Giggs that perhaps Daniel James is being streetwise, but you know what wasn't streetwise?
Admitting it afterwards.
That's the thing. What are you doing? Daniel James has been booked twice this season for diving, even though he might not have dived those times. But
managerial naivety on the part of Giggs.
Absolutely.
What do you have there?
So I had the front of the Telegraph, which leads with disgusting the scenes in Sofia last night as the Euro qualifier stopped twice after sickening racist abuse and Nazi salutes directed at England players. They also have some Rugby World Cup quarter-final stuff. And then I've got the Irish Sun. And there's a great photo of Mick McCarthy and a great headline too, getting snappy. We heard him with Richie earlier on. And Mick kind of has that demeanour, doesn't he?
He does, he's very gruff. But it's
around the media, because he's quite a nice and personable man in general.
Yeah, but it's kind of likeable because he's not putting on a show. That's just what he is,
That's who he is,
but he's had a lot of. To me, he's putting on a positive spin after Georgia, but he does have serious questions to answer, I think, after that performance, because that was a game we need to be targeting a victory in more so than tonight.
Absolutely.
We're playing against a team who literally can't score.
Yeah.
It's like on a night out where everything goes well for 2 hours, but you can't score at the end of it, and they're like that. They do everything right. They never look like scoring.
We never look like scoring.
But at least if Connolly were on the pitch earlier, he had 2 chances when he came on. That was 13 minutes, and we have to be a bit more gung-ho. Give it something. They're not going to score unless we make a bad mistake. And
to be honest, I didn't have a major issue that he didn't start him. But with 55 minutes, 60 minutes on the clock, get him in there.
Absolutely.
Not 77.
And on that very note, the Irish Examiner, which is an absolute bumper sports supplement today, starters orders, Connolly ready to lead Ireland attack, says McCarthy. And I just want to mention a couple of other things in the Examiner today. One of them is a tribute to Aidan O'Brien, which we'll pay our own tribute later on because he turns 50 tomorrow, which happens to be my girlfriend's birthday as well, which means I won't forget her birthday. But Darren Norris counts down Ireland's Aidan O'Brien's 50s greatest moments, which is a nice little feature. And I wanted to call you on this one, Tommy, with your Gaelic Games background. And I think this is very much nail on the head territory in terms of the Galway hurling position.
Yeah.
On page 16, who would be mad enough to take the Galway role? And that's in relation to the county board are apparently trying to get a mediator involved such that Noel Larkin and Franny Ford will kind of come back and say we actually want the job.
Donegal Boyle has a bit on it in the back of the Indo as well, the latest in the Galway job. It's such a mess. And it's crazy because they've been so close to winning multiple All-Irelands over the last couple of years, and they've been doing so well under Donoghue, and it's all fallen apart in the off-season.
As you mentioned, players to have voice after Ford and Larkin reject Galway job. Seems to be a bit of intransigence. That's John Fallon in the back, and Donegal Boyle then assessed the mood ahead of Special Congress. I think John Fallon is talking about the fact that the players are going to probably do something against the county board because the county board are like, we're not going anywhere. Oh yeah, we should also mention Daniel McDonnell. I find this quite interesting. McCarthy, it doesn't feel like we're one win from the Euros. Ireland boss can't understand why his excitement isn't shared. So it's kind of a recency bias here because we would have taken this at the start of the group. We would have taken the fact that Switzerland have dropped 5 points against Denmark. We would have taken the fact that Denmark dropped 2 points in Georgia. We would have taken the fact that we are in this position. But the reality is we've been outplayed in sort of 3 games really. We've sort of fluked 2 draws and probably could have beaten Georgia, but we've scored 6 goals. We've barely scored from open play. We really struggled past Gibraltar. So it's kind of, and also the fact that we would have taken this position, but we wouldn't have taken it before Georgia, if that makes sense. And that we wouldn't have taken a draw on Georgia.
No,
They're
absolutely
not very good.
But it's part of the problem that the grass is greener. This succession plan has been put in place, and we all are getting really excited about this under-21 team. Some of whom, a lot of whom, might not really make it as professionals. They might have really good careers in the lower leagues.
Absolutely.
They might not be Premier League stars. They might not be even Championship regulars in years to come.
Absolutely.
And we are getting so excited. And I'm getting really excited. Jason Malumphey is one of my favourite current players at the minute.
Really?
Oh, I think he's fantastic. My favourite thing about him is that he tweets tackles, that he nailing lads and tackles. He laughs at it. Yeah, it's brilliant.
Did you see Brian Kerr last night for the game? Both he and Kevin Kilbarn were talking about this before the England game.
I hear enough of Kevin. I don't tune into him very much. I'm only joking.
Kevin is great, but we don't see much from him anymore with his dancing responsibilities.
He's too busy.
Yeah, all his Instagram stuff now is to do with dancing.
Very interesting. If people aren't following Kevin Kilbarn on Instagram, he's worth checking out. You're talking about a man at Aidan O'Brien's age who's looking really well.
He does look well.
I know Kevin's not 50 yet, but in terms of a man at that age doing Instagram stories and becoming an influencer, you might say.
An unbelievably sexy man, in fairness. But Brian Kerr was saying that I thought this was interesting now because Brian Kerr has a great reputation in Irish football, but I found him very conservative as a manager when he was Ireland manager. I thought we were very defensive in games. We went 1-0 up, even though Brian had some very good players there at the time, and I definitely should have gotten another term or whatever, but he defended McCarthy and he was making an interesting point. He was like, international football is not easy. You can't just rock up and kind of take to it like a duck to water. But then I was like, well, who do we have if Connolly's not starting? Who do we have? So what's the alternative?
I know. And he took to the Premier League like a duck to water.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
There are certain players coming around once every so often, and Aaron Connolly...
He is one of them.
He just seems to be one of them. I've got the back of the Star here. Johnny Giles has been quoted. I'm not actually sure where John was talking. It wasn't an off the ball in his usual Thursday slot, but Kieran Cunningham has a piece on there. Don't kill Kenny plan. Giles will turn his back on Ireland if FAI ditch deal. So we'll probably hear more about that during the week, but there's no word that they're going to ditch the deal. That's not going to happen, is it? That'd be a complete mess.
No, definitely. Like the FAI actually have I don't think they have the authority to do much at the moment in terms of the mess that it's in, and I think they'll be quite populist in anything they do. It was interesting, Noel Mooney actually mingled with fans in Georgia, and he's in fairness to him, he certainly put himself out there in terms of like kind of talking to people. I think he has a Twitter presence.
Well, Nola's actually quoted here in the piece in the Star with Mark
That was
McCadden.
interesting, yeah.
Care comments baffle Mooney. FAI General Manager Noel Mooney has questioned whether bitterness has prevented Brian Kerr from accepting an offer of a meeting.
And this is from podcast, I think. He was speaking to the Lansdowne Roar podcast.
Yeah.
There's some very interesting quotes here.
There is.
What, like
Kerr didn't hit back last night, did he? I haven't seen it anyway.
I don't think he did, or he didn't. I don't think he was actually. It was brought up, but he's a real dig here. He said, "We all would love Brian to be part of Irish football. It is his prerogative if he chooses not to help the strategy of the game. People should ask why they can play a role in making football better rather than moaning and groaning. That's easy. You can make a lot of money if you moan loud enough." Thought that was a big dig.
We'll have to hear from Brian on that.
We will, absolutely, and Brian does his media work. I think he's very good.
Yeah,
and
absolutely. Yeah.
I don't think Brian has any interest in going back into management. So what are you going to do?
Yeah,
you know.
Sorry, the Star also has Hansen's warning for Schmidt. Like Steve Hansen's mind games, like his mind game. He knows what he's doing when it comes to stuff.
I do enjoy this though, because Czech was having a pop as well.
Czech and Jones are fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, like. I'm a peripheral fan of rugby, but Eddie Jones I find an absolutely intriguing character because, like, I'd say he's easy to hate, but at the same time he's very entertaining.
I think he's fantastic. I've got the UK Times. Racist shamed as match halted. There's also a piece here, Nike shoe is unfair. We had a fascinating piece with Carl Dennehy in studio after he was in Doha last week, talking about all the fallout from Doha. But one of the most interesting stuff was he was going to Vienna to watch Eliud Kipchoge run the sub-2-hour marathon, which he went on and did.
That's right.
But you want to listen back to that shoe. Like, I'm not going to paraphrase it, like, but there's like a special graphite in the shoe, and you know, people been knocking off 4 minutes off the personal bests, and it's not available to the public yet. So,
you going to buy one?
No, there's no point buying it. You can't wear shoes on the football pitch, Johnny.
No.
Nothing's going to knock 4 minutes off.
Running isn't your thing?
Oh, I can run, but I wouldn't be the quickest off the mark.
You've had your injuries down the years?
I've had a couple in the last couple of years, yeah. Yeah, I had surgery on a hip and groin issue last year, and a bit of a knee issue earlier on this year. Like, but sure, look, that kind of happened, kind of comes with the territory.
On the way back.
There's also fake concussion row. Giggs criticised for claiming player was being streetwise. As we mentioned earlier, Ryan Giggs' moral code coming into question again. Call back Tom Lawrence very quickly.
Yeah, the Racing Post Stradivarius faces late Champions Day call, and that's the star stair in training as in relation to the Ascot. Richie Forrestal has a lovely profile on Aidan O'Brien with a view to his birthday tomorrow. And back page, do they tip Ireland to beat Switzerland? No, they do not.
They don't.
Ireland's group rivals can land vital victory in crunch contests, and without making you not buy the Racing Post, they tip Switzerland -1.
Like,
we don't generally lose by more than a goal.
We don't. Kasper Schmeichel had an absolutely sensational game for Denmark the other night. Can Darren Randolph pull off the same, and Aaron Connolly turn up with a little Poulsen break and finish?
We're reliant on Connolly producing a bit of magic and/or a set piece.
We need to change up the midfield a little bit as well, don't we?
Oh, what midfield? We don't have a midfield.
It's crazy.
Like, your boy Malumbi, would he have done any worse? Generally. No, genuinely.
Probably not, but there are a couple of options there, like Alan Brown. Like,
yeah, I think Alan
Conor Horan is not a bad player. He gave away the ball a sensational amount of times, but he's not bad on the ball.
Actually, it's interesting as well because Daniel McDonnell, who we will hear to, he has like you know the way they give the kind of predicted team, but they put probable after it. Like, there's no way you can put probable ahead of any Irish team tonight. It's very, very hard to call.
I've got the Guardian here. Checa says Jones's invite for Australian steward is weird. More mind games between the Australians and English building up to the game. Sophia Shame, again, the racist abuse in Bulgaria. And then Ugo Monye, the Seven Nations, why it's time to invite Japan. That'd be interesting.
Absolutely. Louise Galvin is ready and waiting to come in. Just before she does, Rory O'Connor was also talking rugby, and he was talking about the decision by the World Rugby to ban Bundy Aki for 3 games, and I think this has been challenged. I think Ireland might be challenging the 3-game ban. Have we clarity on that? They're considering challenging the 3-game ban. Obviously, the legal route hasn't worked so far, and we've Easterby saying that he's not a dirty player and all that. But in any event, here is Rory O'Connor on that decision by World Rugby to give the 3-game ban to Bundy Aki.
And even the fact that they used the phrase dominant collision, that it wasn't reactive, that he was going out to make a kind of a statement tackle, as he's known for as a player. He's not known as a dirty player. His tactical technique is usually very, very good. but it's one of those moments. It's a bit like when a footballer miscontrols the ball and goes chasing it and lunges at the ball and gets himself sent off. When Robbie Henshaw threw that loose pass and it bobbled along, suddenly the game went into a bit of chaos, popped up into the Samoan players' hands, and Aki lined them up and just got it completely wrong. I'm not surprised by 3 games. I think the written judgment that we've seen so far is pretty clear cut. But I do think that Ireland will, even just if they can get them back on the pitch if they're here for the final or the semi-final, it'll be worth it, because I think while they'll have a very good chance of beating New Zealand this Saturday without them, because Gary Ringos and Robbie Henshaw are very good players, they have to consider the long game as well. And losing Aki reduces their ability to rotate in midfield. He can't train while he's here, as far as I can read it. He will remain in Japan. They can't replace him. Even the fact that Will Addison is injured, if they could replace him, they'd be looking at Rory Scannell. You know, it's a blow to the squad. It's a blow to Ireland's overall World Cup chances. Now, whether they're here or not next week remains to be seen. They're 12-point outsider against the All Blacks, so it may be Connacht who pay the price. My translation of that long Joe Schmidt answer is that Rob Kearney's coming back in at 15 next week. The Jordan Larmour played very well, back on the bench. You know, if we need you, we'll call on you, and he may be called on to make a different impact. In fairness, he could be putting the wingers under pressure, because Keith Earls and Jacob Stockdale have hardly been lighting this tournament up. Neither of them have scored yet, and Stockdale wasn't really in the game at the weekend after that big head collision early in the game. So I think Larmour has done really, really well, and he's probably, I would say Andy Farrell has earmarked him as his fullback of the future once this World Cup is over. But I do think that Joe Schmidt has probably earned the right to select his tried and trusted for this game. And if you think about the way the All Blacks play and the way they picked apart South Africa in that first game with their crossfield kicking game, with their clever kicks in behind, there's no one like Rob Kearney to give you that assurance in the backfield, to cover across, to win the ball. He scored 2 tries at this tournament as well, don't forget. He's kind of responded to the Jordan Larmour challenge. The only question is whether he'll train fully tomorrow. By tomorrow morning, we might have some, your time, we might have some more detail on that, because this tournament so far, it's been very strict. You train on Tuesday and you play. If you don't, you don't. And the suggestion is that Kearney did pick up a muscle injury in that game in Kobe, even though we are hearing that it's 30 fit players this weekend. So, 31 minus Aki. So, no, I think Kearney does play it.
And we're back. What have you been up to anyway? What's going on in ladies rugby at the moment?
Just back from the Sevens rugby in Colorado with the first leg of the Sevens World Series over in Denver. So not a particularly good start for us. So we're back in this week trying to right a few wrongs and get set for the next leg, which is in Dubai at the beginning of December.
This is Louise Galvin in studio. Tell me about the Sevens. What's that like compared to the normal stuff?
Pretty tough, yeah. I suppose
physically demanding. I'd say you're tired,
Yeah. And in Colorado as well, it's at altitude, so it was
right.
I missed the tournament last year. I was injured, so it was a real eye opener. It was just so difficult to get your breath back once you just made any sort of a sprint at all. I describe it as being torture, really. Sevens. It sounds short.
Your words now.
Yeah, 7 minutes a half. So you think it's going to fly, but I've never realised 7 minutes could last so long. The work rate is just massive, and then obviously you're trying to make these decisions under fatigue as well. But there's something really, satisfying about it, or you just get a draw to it, attracted to it, and it's a really unique kind of team atmosphere in that even when you go away, we travel a lot, our tournaments all around the world, which is obviously positive as well. You're staying in the same hotel as all the other teams you're playing with, you're eating at the same time.
That's cool.
So you end up actually with a real bond with nearly the teams you play against, because any other sport I've played or any other game, you're kept away from the team and you have this distance between them. Sevens, that's one thing that's a little bit different. It's probably a bit of a mix between male and female a bit more as well than other sports. We train with our men's squad out now in the new high performance centre in Blanchardstown, but prior to that in Lansdowne Road, and it's similar with some of the other international teams, and we play a lot of double leg tournaments, so a few differences, but overall physically incredibly demanding.
What sort of nick are you in at the moment then as a team?
Not too bad. We've had a good few young players come through, which has actually been really good, because it's been a young enough squad starting. About 4 or 5 years ago, they probably would have targeted a lot of transfer athletes. I would have come from Gaelic football and basketball background, and a lot of our team would have. So it meant that a lot of players kind of made early 20s, but they hadn't a lot of time in rugby. So we're getting there. Our rugby knowledge and awareness is improving all the time. The only problem is, for a lot of the other countries, the standard is improving massively. So as we're getting better, so is everyone else. So bit of a challenge, but last year we got to one semi-final, which is our first time ever in the World Series. So we're definitely hoping to emulate that and more this year.
What's the story with before we get to the men's game? What's the story with basketball in Kerry? It just seems to be so big there. Like, I've noticed that.
Yeah, I don't.
Castle Island has the Blitz and all that as well.
Yeah, Castle Blitz is very popular every Christmas. I don't know, even and it's both for male and females, and you'll have periods where it'll drop off. Like, there's times where you might have 3 Super League teams when I was growing up, male and female, and then there was none. And now, fair play to Cian Donaghy, like the work he's done down in the Warriors is just incredible. I mean, the atmosphere of those games, people queuing up to come in, and it's great because, especially in winter time in these, a rural town like Tralee, there isn't a huge amount going on, particularly from a sporting point of view, because GA is all obviously dampened down for the year, or, well, apart from the club games probably going 12 months around, but fair play to them, because they saw an opportunity where there's an appetite for sports people to jump on a real community team, and they've absolutely ran with it in terms of Warriors. But even for girls, like, there's always been a strong schools game, club game. I'd love to see a Super League female team as well. Probably one of the issues there is obviously girls go away to college just like lads as well, and then you're trying to transfer to college teams, you're trying to get them back. But yeah, it's always been a real hub for basketball.
Yeah.
And brilliant sport as well.
Yeah. And there's talk of even a League of Ireland team potentially coming in. I know Kerry 17s were playing the cup final against Bows and Tralee, so plenty happening in the province. The last time you were in was after the Japan defeat, so where are you now relative to where we're at?
In terms of my own?
In terms of the, what have you made of Ireland since?
Oh, what have I made of Ireland?
That was pretty bad, but it doesn't look as bad now because Japan looked pretty good on Sunday, I guess.
Yeah, you're like, okay, well, how, you were trying to rank, well, where Scotland are, where Japan at, so we can see where Ireland are at. But, Japan are incredibly impressive. I see Hansen there is playing a few mind games, and he'll be saying, oh, well, I'm glad we've avoided Japan. And you wonder, listen, you wouldn't be worried about playing anyone, I think, at this stage.
Yeah.
But is that just, I think it's just more of a dig of, we're happy to play Ireland, he's trying to say in not so many words. But they've taken this game by storm, and besides the Ireland-New Zealand game, that's the other quarter-final that I'm actually really looking forward to, the Japan-South Africa game. As for Ireland, I think we're in better shape because obviously, look, we all know, brilliant 2018, poor Six Nations, a complete wobbler with that England warm-up game, starting to get a bit of momentum then again in the build-up to the World Cup. We thought we were great after beating Scotland, thought everything went well, and obviously then the Japan game happened.
There is a kind of an up and down nature of it, isn't there? Like, it's when one followed by bad, like, or whatever.
Yeah, and in terms of the actual World Cup, look, at 7 weeks, you're not going to be at peak every week, so I think that's fine, but maybe what's a little bit alarming for people is the form for 2019 as a whole. But having said that, I definitely take what Johnny Sexton said in his presser yesterday on point, that coming into the end of the group stages, we're definitely in better form. There's a few kind of key things, like Johnny and Conor Murray had a pretty good game there for Samoa. A few guys really coming back into form, like Tadhg Furlong and CJ Stander, who was someone, where he was a nailed-on starter, he was really being questioned about why he was playing, but he had a brilliant game there against Samoa. So there's a few things that are starting to come right, certainly. So we're better shape than we were the last time I was in with you.
Yeah, we heard Rory O'Connor there on about the Larmer v Carney dilemma. Where are you on that?
Once Carney's fit, he'll play, because I just think his aerial prowess, particularly from a defensive point of view, like Joe is very loyal to his performers, and he's a defence-first type of man, and I think if Larmer was to play, it's great if we dominate territory and possession, he's probably going to be more of a threat going forward, but from a defensive point of view, I think Carney, he's one of those players you don't realise how good or important he is until he's not there, because he's covering that backfield, and he just seems to have that positional awareness that seems to be another step up, which is probably, he's 33, he's the most capped full back in World Rugby, actually, which has probably gone under the radar. It happened during this World Cup. I think when he played his first game after that injury in the initial game, and he's a guy that we don't realise how good he is defensively, and I think a lot of that is down to his positional awareness, obviously, as well as his rugby ability. So I think Joe is going to go with Rob, and then have the potential of a bit of a game breaker in Larmer coming off the bench.
Yeah, which will likely happen if, I mean, I was reading Alan Quinlan this morning in the Indo. He's like, we need to put it up to these lads. If we play a containing game, it's just not going to work. We need to be in your face. But I would imagine we can't fall very far behind against them either. We need to at least stay in touch, because I don't know if they get a couple of tries in us, where's this comeback going to come from? Like,
yeah, and we're not really a team that do come back now. A lot of the time,
the game kind
of, a lot of the time in recent years we have been kind of there or ahead, but you saw against Japan we weren't able to claw that back in, even though we had certainly decent amounts of possession. So I think if we end up a few tries back, you know, I wouldn't be putting money in us coming from behind. So I think it's going to be a management from the starting whistle. And Joe has done this before. Like, we've obviously beaten them twice the last 3 times we've played them, and most of the guys playing would have beaten them, plus a few of the guys haven't played with the Lions as well, so they have that extra win and draw against them. I suppose the fear is that even if we play to our best and do this whole, you know, manage the possession, manage the territory, play this almost slightly conservative in terms of, compared to other teams' game plan, with the execution levels that Joe demands and so often achieves, I still wonder, are New Zealand going to beat us? Because there's always this question whether we have a plan B or whether we can adapt or evolve to a game. Compare that to New Zealand, who in the first 20 minutes against South Africa,
they were blown away almost,
being obliterated, and the defensive...
And the game was over in like 10 minutes in almost.
Yeah,
like insane.
The defensive line speed and just the whole system that Razzie implemented with South Africa, and then even if the wingers coming in, making tackles where nearly your 12 should be making them. But you could see New Zealand adapt, see that space out in the wing, realise they weren't able to pass it out there and just start to chip it over, and then you're 2 tries in and all of a sudden the game is right back on their terms and they run out of 10, 13 point winners.
Would you start Tadhg Byrne? Do you think he's in the mix to start?
I don't think so. I think the pack is fairly set with what we would have predicted, probably even before the tournament. And that's another positive. We're not going into this game with any real injury concerns.
And also they're going in, and they're going in a bit cold after the Italy game called off.
Yeah, like I was looking back going, well, where are New Zealand at? And you have to go back to that South Africa game to actually have any semblance of it. And similarly for South Africa as well. And so, you know, in a tournament like this, you could look at, well, our Ireland a bit more battle hardened, a bit more aware of who their starting 15 are, and who they want coming off the bench compared to New Zealand. You know, potentially. So now I know they're saying they had this big training session at the weekend, and you know, coaches, they love throwing out like the GPS stats are off the chart, there's these, you know, PVs in the gym. We're hearing a lot of this kind of
we've heard that from Ireland already.
Yeah, we're hearing, you know,
and it's almost used as like, we need to say this just to show that things are grand, kind of, you know.
Yeah, but, a bit of positive propaganda or something.
Yeah,
like that.
positive propaganda, because propaganda is always positive. Let's hear from the New Zealand rugby press conference earlier this morning. New Zealand's forwards coach Ian Foster was talking about what to expect against Ireland.
Yeah, look, I think it's... I don't think there's one tactic that's good or bad. I think it's how you use it in terms of during the game. But certainly, you know, we've got a do-or-die game against Ireland. They're a high retention team, so they like to hold the ball, and they'll use the kick when they feel they're under pressure or they sense weakness. So, you know, we're not expecting a barrage of kicking. We're expecting a team that will want to hold the ball and a lot of rucks and a lot of tackles. So that's their style. And you know, we've got to just, like I said earlier, we've just got to prepare for what we see on Saturday and go and do what we need to do.
Sorry, what's your overall impression of Ireland being?
Sorry, I missed that.
What's your overall impression of Ireland being throughout the tournament?
Pretty good, really. I mean, a lot's been made of their performance against Japan, and I think if you flip that over, you'd probably got to really pat Japan on the back for that game. Well, they played really, really well. But I think if you look at, you know, like Japan beat Scotland by 7, and that's a great win, but Ireland were pretty ruthless against Scotland and really put them away when they needed to, and they looked good against Samoa with 14 men. So I'm pretty sure they'll be primed and ready.
Primed and ready, yeah. These press conferences are, I don't know if you've done many in your day, but they're obviously difficult because you want to be honest, but you also want to put a spin on things. And there has been a bit of mind games, and I've enjoyed the Checa mind games, particularly against Jones, but Hansen's been getting involved as well.
Yeah, they are a bit of mind games, and I think in a World Cup as well, there's just so many of them. I like what Ireland are nearly doing is putting out a different, even back member staff ones that we're not used to seeing, and there's a nice little positive spin on that yesterday when Johnny was on with Vinnie Hammond, who they've known each other since they're teenagers, and anyone that's met Vinnie, he's great crack as well. He's very personable, very easygoing, so that was definitely...
Today Porter didn't even show up, so it's like we'll just bring out half our players for the press conference, so there you are.
They're probably just getting a bit tired of them now, but yeah, like I mentioned at the start of the show about Hansen mentioning, I'm glad we avoided Japan, is obviously quite straight.
Why do you say that actually though? Like, I mean, is that not like kind of going to rile Ireland's players up?
Yeah, I think so, but I think they have a certain level of arrogance that he's not going to worry about riling Ireland up or getting a backlash. And again,
you call it arrogance?
A little bit of that, yeah. I think when you're such a dominant force, I mean, they haven't lost since in World Cup rugby
16 games, yeah.
Yeah, 2007 in the quarter-final against France, that they believe the hype around themselves. Now they deliver usually. Obviously, we hope that's not going to happen this Saturday. But with Hansen, I think he was obviously trying to compliment the Japanese, which the whole world is trying to do. They're everyone's second favourite team at the moment, but it also has had an undertone of a dig at, we're happy to play Ireland as the other team in the pool. Kind of saying, listen, we've no fear of you just because you're going around with this record of having beaten us 2 of the last 3 times we played you.
Granted we have, but does that actually really matter now, considering where we were last, November, compared to now with all the... We probably went into that at our peak in terms of the Joe Schmidt era almost, and it was like a peak performance, but now there've been so many different performances, you're wondering, like, does it matter? I know they've the monkeys off the back, but like... I don't think it's a concern for New Zealand that they've lost to us, to be honest.
No, it's not really a concern for them. For us, it just gives us that belief. It just knowing you've been there, knowing you've done that, and they've been 2 competitive games as well. I mean, for someone like, you look back at that game, someone like Jacob Stockdale hasn't scored yet in the tournament, knowing he's pulled out that performance. Peter O'Mahony, who, had a good introduction off the bench, and I expect him to start at the weekend. I mean, we can all remember him just being imperious in that game, the chip behind, diving. It was almost like something out of the gods, the way he got that ball. Those little memories, to have them in your bank and to know you've beaten them at home and away, even though it's on US soil, it's just something that it's definitely a positive in Ireland's back pocket.
You say it's in your bank anyway,
yeah, but at the same time it doesn't lend to any recent form.
Bundy Aki's banned, so who starts and what are we going to do about that? And assuming he doesn't play, it looks pretty unlikely at the moment.
Yeah, it's incredible that we've never really known who Joe picks out of Bundy, Ringrose and Henshaw, because all 3 haven't been completely fit. I know Ringrose wasn't injured at the weekend, but his game time was pretty high. So I think we're actually in fairly decent shape because we're going to go with Robbie and Gary. Robbie was, a little bit off the ball in terms of his handling and maybe decision-making, passing at the weekend, but I think that's fairly to be expected, and overall he was pretty decent, pretty good shape, and Joe has a lot of time for him. He's a really, really good player, really good defensive player as well, good reader of the game, so I think he's going to slot into 12, Gary go 13.
How is the game going to be won and lost, or how can we actually beat them?
Similar to our previous, or the way we play the game, we need to control it in our terms, play this pressure territory game and then execute to a really high level, and then you're going to hope that Joe has a few power plays to pull out of his bag, but it's not going to be, we're not going to win if this game goes 45-37, because we're not going to score like that, even though we did beat them quite well in Chicago, but I think that was a different Kiwi team. They were a bit weaker then. They brought a stronger team to play us in November, and we still beat them, but you could see it was like a 1 try 3 penalty type game from our point of view. And I could see it being that kind of a scoreline again if we are going to come out on top.
Do we actually have the backs to win this game? Because as you mentioned there, certainly Stockdale hasn't scored yet. He hasn't scored a try yet. Do we have actually the nous and the play to produce something, to get an amazing try or two? Because surely it's not going to be all forward play to win this, because that's not going to be enough.
No, it's not going to be enough. We do have the backs, and I think we have the mindset and the coach, whether we've had that kind of form to bring with us that we had in 2018 is more the risk, or as well if Joe brings something that New Zealand are more than capable of dealing with. If those power plays don't come off, they are our opportunity to score. They're off our line out, our scrum. I think we're one of the highest teams to have scored tries straight off a line out as our launch play. So obviously that New Zealand will be well aware of that, but they'll pick at a few chinks in their armour, like they often put Munga to 13 defensively, so maybe he might be a target for them. If New Zealand go with certain 15 like they went against South Africa, they don't have a lot of experience, particularly in their wingers. Obviously they're tremendous players and game breakers, but Severis and Bridge, they might be a target for Ireland in terms of kind of that maybe defensive naivety at this level, so they might target them and see what they can get out of it. But it's, this reminds me of the build-up to the All-Ireland final, Dublin-Kerry, because as a Kerry woman, I'd wake up and I'm like, yeah, absolutely, before the drawing game, we can take this. And then another morning you're waking up going, oh lads, are we going to be hockeyed at the gate? And it almost, I feel the same again. I'm like, is this going to be an absolute unmitigated disaster, or are we going to be stuck in this and in it? And all of a sudden, the pressure's back on New Zealand then, because not very many people actually expect Ireland to win this. So if we're 65 minutes, then it's game on.
Nice Dublin-Kerry comparison there as well. Eoin Sheahan has been very brave in his journalism in Japan. We're going to cross over to him very shortly, and he was particularly brave talking to Ian Foster at the press conference as well earlier.
You were saying earlier in the tournament that the All Blacks don't have any tricks up their sleeves, they just execute better than everybody else. Do you think Joe Schmidt may have a trick up his sleeve, something that he's been holding back for this weekend?
Sorry, just repeat what I said earlier, that we were better than anyone else. I'm not sure I ever said that.
You said that you didn't have any tricks up your sleeve, that you just kind of lay all your cards on the table. Does Joe Schmidt have something up his sleeve, or has he already shown us all what Ireland can do?
Look, I don't mean to be rude, but you're asking me to guess what another coach is thinking. So, I mean, really, you've got to ask him. We're assuming that, based on past behaviour, that they'll come out with a plan that they think's good enough to beat us. So, will that involve some special plays? Probably.
Oh, and you're in Disneyland, which is a little bit apt for the response, I think, in general, and the body language to your question there. If was it even a question? What did you actually ask him there?
I just said something in a previous press conference back to him. It was a fairly benign thing. He just said that the New Zealand team don't tend to have any secrets. We know how they play. Everybody knows how they play. And their aim as a rugby team is to just do this very obvious thing, but do it better than you. And I think that was a fair enough comment from him a couple of weeks ago. So I just asked him, in that context, is Joe Schmidt the opposite of that, where Ireland have been going through the motions over the last couple of weeks, doing as well as they possibly can, but using tricks that they don't necessarily want to use if they want to pull out their A game. And it's something that's been mentioned a couple of times. It's a theory that's out there, but Cian Healy kind of confirmed it this morning, saying that, we probably do have a few other trick plays up our sleeve. We're not going to tell you what they are, but we do have something. Like Joe Schmidt, it's been mentioned in every single press conference that this is the biggest week of the lives of the careers of all these rugby players for Ireland. But it's probably also the biggest week for Joe Schmidt in his career and his legacy, especially in Ireland. So he's not going into a game against the All Blacks without some tricks. Like it's not the most ridiculous notion in the world. It's not the most controversial talking point. I don't know why Foster reacted in that way. Maybe he thought that I was saying that he thought that they were better than everybody else. That's not what I was saying. He also kind of gave a similar reaction when somebody asked him, why do Andy Farrell defences have such success against the All Blacks? And he was just like, you'll have to ask him, mate. So I don't know. There's no theorising when it comes to Ian Foster. It's like you have to ask the correct question and no speculation.
Yeah, I think when he said mate there, he meant it in the not particularly nice way. What did you make with Louise? Would you have sympathy with Foster there dealing with these questions from Irish journalists?
Not much sympathy, no. Think fair play, Owen. But
the man, Owen. Yeah.
But, again, it just shows maybe they are a little bit on edge. Because he certainly kind of got under his skin, poked a little bear there, you know, because he could have just rolled with the punches and gone along with, oh yeah, I'm sure they did, and oh yeah, they've had good success with the defence coaches, but he actually got a little bit.
Did you poke a bear, Owen?
I don't know. It certainly wasn't my intention. I wanted to get in there, just get Ian Foster and get out of there straight away, because Disneyland is quite a bit away from the rest of civilization in Tokyo. So it wasn't my intention, but it seems to have happened. But I'm sure he meant nothing by it. Maybe he is on edge. Maybe they are on edge this week. Like, I mean, you could forgive somebody for being in a bad mood after a training session early in the week. I'd say early in the week, it's a lot of hard work. It's a lot of thinking about the opposition. And then later in the week, you start to enjoy yourself a little bit more. Also, as well, the All Blacks haven't really played for quite some time. If you want to perhaps dig a little bit deeper into the psyche here of Ian Foster, if I was around the same people and players for whatever this is going to be, 13 days without playing a match, I might start to get sick of them as well. But by all accounts, the training session they put in last Friday was test conditions. It was above test conditions at times. He said that they went pretty intensely for that. So I think in terms of being rusty, that's not going to be an issue, as we were talking about yesterday for the All Blacks. But yeah, he was up. And then, as I say, came out here, Disneyland, where Cian, Healy, Simon Easterby were doing media. It's kind of weird when you're actually on the Disneyland Express, all the windows kind of carved into the shape of Mickey Mouse, and you can hear You've Got a Friend in Me, the well-known Toy Story banger, playing as you're going to find out whether or not Bundy Aki is going to have his ban appeals. So the news there is that we're going to get a full report from the Independent Disciplinary Committee over the next 48 hours or so. We obviously got bullet points last night, kind of an abridged version of that. We know the full scale of their reasoning over the next couple of days, and then Ireland will decide whether or not they want to appeal. Bundy Aki is put to train this week, which is kind of important. It's important to be able to get on the pitch and actually have test-like conditions for the early part of this week especially. So he's been helping out. He's not sulking this week. So that's the one silver lining we've got to all of this. He doesn't necessarily have to sit out all involvement with the team.
I presume it's very, very unlikely, is it, that this will be turned around?
Hugely unlikely. I'd be astonished if he was available this weekend. I'd be surprised, to be honest, if he got back for any part of the World Cup, to be honest. Like, he's already got a reduction, let's not forget. This was a 6-week ban. That's been brought down to a 3-week ban because of good behaviour. Now, maybe they get some wiggle room and they get it down to a 2-week ban or something like that, and then all of a sudden the rest of the week becomes a little bit easier for Bundy Aki, because he's trying to help his teammates get through a quarter-final and perhaps set themselves up for winning a semi-final, and then he might be able to play in a World Cup final. But that's very much putting it on the long finger. I don't think many people are actually expecting Ireland to reach the World Cup final, because after losing that Japan game, we've kind of hammered home how difficult the path this is going to be. You've got to beat New Zealand and England now, whereas previously it could have been South Africa and, say, Wales, and that would on paper look like a much easier path to the final. So whether it's 3 weeks or 2 weeks or 1 week, I don't think Bundy Aki minds, but he is on the training pitch. He is helping drive those standards on, and Simon needs to be earlier on. I was pretty happy with that.
Is that a giant cake in the background, or what is it?
No, that is the Disney store. That is probably made in a cake sort of shape. We've got Minnie Mouse's, multiple Minnie Mouses there, and then that's Mickey Mouse, obviously, the giant gold figure there over my shoulder, but I'm sure you'd recognise him.
Yeah, any questions for your fellow Kerry native?
Any bacon
well,
and cabbage
I just like to say that I've filed my latest piece for the Kerry's Eye newspaper down at home, and I made the exact same comparison between the Kerry and Dublin match and the Ireland-New Zealand. So thanks a million for that. Really appreciate that. Stealing my thunder right there. But it is kind of the same thing where, like, you go in knowing that you have it in your locker to beat that team on an occasion that perhaps isn't that important. Like, you look at the National League earlier on this year, huge fanfare with that result on a really went Kerry's way over Dublin. That confidence is brought into an All-Ireland final. Like, I'm not exactly calling a November Test National League now. Like, there was kind of justifiable celebration last year when Ireland had achieved something on home soil against a team they'd never beaten on home soil. So I think in its own right that was a big achievement. But then if you want to use that as context for this week, in terms of actually giving them the confidence for this week, I think it is a big thing. But in terms of it actually having a material impact on how the All Blacks view Ireland, I don't think that'll do us any favours. I don't think they fear anybody, obviously. I think, in fact, actually, it's kind of woken them up a little bit. And I think the number one thing on their priority list this weekend is to send Ireland back into next week and show them exactly where the real world order lies, because this is a team that they used to be able to crush whenever they wanted. And recently, over the last couple of years, since the last World Cup, Ireland have been, if you want to use this analogy further, poking the bear a little bit over the last couple of years. So very, very interesting to see how, say, the All Blacks celebrated the beat us on Saturday, how up for it they are on Saturday. I don't think there's any question that there will be. I don't think there's any question that they're going to come out of the blocks absolutely wanting to tear us apart.
Very briefly, what will the kind of nature or sort of vibe of your Vox Pop be, do you think, after the game?
Oh, God, it's if we win, it's
off the charts.
It's all bets off. Yeah, people might, like, I might even engage in the festivities myself if we win on Saturday. But if we lose, I'd say it'll probably be exactly the same thing, to be quite honest with you. It'll win, lose, draw. Irish people will probably be happy out. They're in Japan, Johnny. They paid a lot of money to be here. They're on holidays. They're probably down doing the touristic sites over the course of this week and then come back up to Tokyo this weekend. So they're on holidays. They may as well have a good time. Win, lose or draw. Of course, the Irish team. That does not go for them. Saying that Irish fans are happy to be happy after losing a game does not equate to us being a nation of losers, in my humble opinion.
Well, that's debatable, but just the ticket situation as well. I mean, a lot of people trying to swap, and like, what's the best protocol there? There was a kind of a football parlance here in that some people had bought tickets for Geneva, but we were so crap on Saturday, decided that we might as well go home. I was kind of among that group myself, where I was like, it'd be great to go to Geneva, but I don't really want to go there to see us getting beaten, and I kind of should go home. But what's the story over there with tickets?
Yeah, it's a lot of people, the majority of Irish fans, I'd say, have actually bought tickets for Sunday's game, which isn't great at all. They bought tickets for Japan against South Africa because you had to buy tickets beforehand. So now you've got a bunch of Irish fans, tons of Irish fans, who now want to swap tickets. And they're looking to swap tickets with Japanese fans, who, of course, have tickets for Ireland against New Zealand on Saturday. The problem with this, though, is that it is the host nation, Johnny. A lot of the Japanese fans who would have bought tickets for the game are people who live in Tokyo anyway, will pop down to the stadium anyway, who want to go and watch the All Blacks play. So the simplification of just making a swap shop and meeting up and getting a lot of Irish fans to swap tickets with Japanese fans, I don't think the prospect of that looks too good at all. So it's not looking great from an Irish fan's perspective. World Rugby have not organised a swap shop. There was some talk that perhaps it might be going ahead, but it hasn't happened. And there is one Facebook event set up that suggested there is going to be a swapping event taking place over the next couple of days. But I've gone through it, and it looks like all the people posting on it are Irish people looking for quarterfinal 2 tickets when they have quarterfinal 4 tickets. So it's a bit of a nightmare, to be honest with you. Like, I've been trying to ask around a couple of the Japanese journalists and a couple of the people here that I've met over the last couple of weeks, and there seems to be a bit of head scratching going on. People don't quite know what the solution is here, but I'll ask around a bit more, Johnny. And I don't know what you really do. I think you just kind of have to perhaps go outside the ground maybe on the day or the day before the game. It would be great if there was just some sort of official channel to be able to swap tickets back.
Thanks very much for your time as ever, Eoin.
Cheers, folks. Chat to you soon.
Yeah, Keith Ginnity, one of Meath Hill's finest footballers, I think we can guess who wrote this, is trying to swap 5 Category B tickets for the Japan-South Africa quarter-final. He's in Tokyo from tomorrow and has physical tickets ready to swap. Thanks a million for coming in. Yourself?
Sorry?
Thanks a million for coming in.
Thanks.
You're a fan of the bacon and cabbage.
Yeah. Sorry, you ran into the tickets there, and thanks a million for coming in. I wasn't sure you can swap in tickets.
Yeah, I think that is it. We are we're done with Eoin for the time being, and the ticketing situation. Just, I suppose, keep on social media and see what happens, because I know there are lots of people who want to swap. And best of luck in the near future as well. We'll have you in soon, no doubt.
Cheers, thanks very much.
What's the Ireland-New Zealand score, or what's the margin of victory or defeat?
If we win, it'll be tight, and if we lose, it could be more than tight.
It could be pretty bad.
Oh no, I don't think it'll be pretty bad,
but
yeah, it could be 15 points or so, but if we win, it'll be within a converted try score.
Thanks very much to Irish Centre Louise Galvin for coming in. And season 2 of Leaders' Questions with Stuart Lancaster returns today at 1 p.m. after the Rugby World Cup show. Over the next few weeks, we're going to have some really good interviews coming your way. The first episode is a sit-down interview with Lancaster. We discuss his time at Leinster, winning the Champions Cup, and how personal loss has shaped his leadership style. And here's a short clip of what's coming up in that interview.
You know, we'd lose a game, and I think, right, what could I have done better? You know, and obviously, I'd still take it personally, but I can let it go a little bit better. And maybe it's easier because I'm not coaching my national team, and I wasn't, that's a pretty big responsibility when you're in charge of your own country. You know, when you lose the game, it feels like the world has ended.
Yeah.
If Leinster were to lose a game, obviously I'm disappointed. It's probably not the same context, but even then, I still I'm still pretty grumpy when I go home if we lose.
That's fair enough. I did want to talk to you about, since the last season, the New England Patriots have come back and won the Super Bowl with Bill Belichick as their coach. And I've made this point, and I'm not sure if I made it in the first season, but we in this part of the world have a very binary culture. You succeed or fail, and if you fail, you're a failure forever, and you're kind of scarred with it. Bill Belichick famously failed with one of the greatest coaching teams that has ever been assembled in any sport. If you look at the subsequent careers that they all go and have at during his time at the Cleveland Browns, they become they have a terrible season, and the team actually moves after they sack Belichick. But here he is, the greatest coach potentially in any sport. Certainly, you could talk about him in those terms if we need to deal in absolutes. But he's certainly one of the greatest coaches in any sport of all time. Failure is really important. It's a really important aspect of life that we should, certainly in this part of the world, I think, get much better at dealing with and having a discussion about and teasing out, honestly, why didn't that work?
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. And I think you put me on the book, actually, the Michael Lombardi one.
Yeah.
And he talks about second chance coaches. So in American football, they tend to go for coaches who failed before in order to give them a second chance, because actually they're going to be far better second time round. Whereas, obviously in Europe, it seems to be that once you fail, then that's it, you're out the door and let's get the next person in. So yeah, I think there's a huge amount to be said about giving people opportunities once they've failed, because they learn a huge amount. But also the second thing is, the actual mechanics of what actually did happen there and what can we learn. And that's the basis of the Black Box Thinking book Matthew Syed wrote, which is about the black boxes in aeroplanes, where they find the black box and they have a rigorous review of why the plane crashed or whatever happened, and why they're so robust in their review process. Whereas there's other organisations, sporting included, who will just say, well, actually, that was just a terrible experience. Let's park that and not take the lessons from it. So, there's a huge amount to be learned from failure, there's no doubt.
Very interesting stuff there from Stuart Lancaster, and that's season 2 of Leaders Questions with Stuart, coming your way at 1 p.m. today on Off the Ball, OTB Sports Radio, and across all our social channels. We're going to be talking racing and football next with JD. John Duggan's coming in, and we're delighted to be working with Horse Racing Ireland on Off the Ball, and obviously signed a new 2-year contract as well coming up for Friday Night Racing over the next couple of years. And here is our latest feature with them as we caught up with Mayo's very own Westport native and jockey Conor Hoban.
My name is Conor Hoban, from Westport in Mayo, a jockey and pre-trainer or have a breaking yard as well. So pre-training basically is gradually build them up to a level of fitness that when they go to the trainer they can slot back in. 3 pre-trainers at the moment belong to Johnny Murta, and there's 4 more fillies that just came last week, and they're just on the walker with breaking bits in their mouth, just literally getting them handled and getting them used to us, because they're just after coming from they're homebreds and just after coming from the field. So that's the story for today, lads. Breaking horses, it's mostly yearlings we do, so the yearling season is actually in full flow now at the moment. So when they come, we spend a bit of time for the first week. Any opportunity you get, you go into the box and just give them a pat or brush over, pick out their feet, or just try to do something that they get the trust in you. And then after a few days, then you try to introduce breaking bits in their mouth, which is the bits with the keys to make their mouth, and we put them on the walker. And after a week or that on the walker with them, we'd introduce the long reins and drive them, and go from there to backing them and riding them, and they'd get plenty of figure 8, and then they go to the gallop. But we like to spend, it depends on the individual, about 10 days driving them. Some of them might need more, some of them might tell you that they mightn't enjoy the long reins, so we get going on their backs. But it's a slow process, we don't rush it. A great team here, good help. Gareth Cotter will be with me from the start. And he's a wealthy experience, because really I'm only new to it. So with Gareth here, you're learning off him the whole time, and as I said, he's a great help, and we've good riders as well. So it's important not to rush them and give them good education. Like my main profession at the moment is still being a jockey, and I'm very much focused on that at the moment. The pre-training and braking side of things, I do it after my riding out in the mornings or before I go racing, and it's something that I wanted to get going and set up. As you know, the jockey, it's a short career, so I didn't want to get to my 40s and finish up riding and have nothing, especially now with 2 kids and my partner Emer, who's going to get married in December, so I have a family now and a wife to support, so it's I enjoy, as you said, the pre-training and braking side, but as you said, you have a closer bond with the horses, and I suppose when you're at the track and the 2-year-olds are running and whoever may be riding them, the first question, was it a good ride? Because we're after breaking it, so I suppose once they say it's a good ride, and that's our job really done. But no, it's great to see them progress, and obviously you want to see them doing well, and you do get a great kick out of seeing them winning, and because you're being associated with them from a young age, you know.
Lovely feature with Conor Hoban, trying to keep the game alive in one of the racing backwaters in Mayo, and Fergal Moran as well, another trainer, Michael Flannery in that neck of the woods. And as much as it's rural isolation, it's great to see these yards that are kind of away from the recognised strongholds like Meath and Tipperary and Kildare.
Yeah, I think we don't want to slap ourselves in the back here, but I think one of the great things we've done with HRI is just to kind of bring racing beyond the day. Bring it beyond the betting ring and who's going to win, and it's actually about the stories of the people involved, and that it's just so refreshing to see that there are actually people behind it. They've got day-to-day lives, and it's funny that most of the work is done before the day.
How are you, John Duggan?
I'm good, thanks, Johnny. Yeah, looking forward to tonight. I kind of find it hard to believe that we could qualify for the Euros with 1 game to spare, but nobody in the country feels like they were going to do it.
No, like I think we're 6-1, which isn't like if somebody tipped a horse at 6-1, you'd be like, that is a chance. So we do have a chance. Like, it's just one man who trains a lot of winners at shorter than 6-1 is Aidan O'Brien. Your birthday was recently. This fella has a few years in you. He's 50 tomorrow.
Yeah, and a few more achievements as well, Johnny.
A few is all.
A few. Look, he's just such a lovely man. The sports editors. I was editing Today FM at the time, were brought down to Coolmore about 10 years ago, just for kind of a look, this is what it's like, and they wanted to get a couple of messages across. It was just unbelievable down there. It was just incredible. So it was like, we went down for a bit of dinner on, say, a Monday night. The next morning, we all arrived there at 7 o'clock. In a minibus, and we get into the yard at Ballydoyle, and there's probably about 100 horses going around in a circle, and the final countdown is playing by Europe, that 80s song. And I'm kind of wondering to myself, is this motivation for the horses or something? Actually, it was Today FM, so I was really chuffed at the time to hear it was Today FM. But Aidan O'Brien knew every single rider's name, and he knew every single horse. It was just something almost like something out of Rain Man. And then we got on a minibus with Aidan, who drove the minibus, and Joseph, I think, was only 16 at the time, was riding, I think, Yates or something alongside the minibus, and it's built in completely like Epsom, Coolmore, and like, you know, all of the kind of undulations and the hill and all that kind of thing. And just to see Johnny Mercer was leading, it was the jockey at the time, just to see how the whole thing worked. A lovely fella, really engaging, not maybe as shy as you would see in the camera, knew his stuff backwards. And then we got a tour of like Golden Vale and the Coolmore, the breeding side of it, where you have a horse per field, because it's just obviously so important. You see how you have solariums, you see where they're kind of washed, you see where the breeding happens. You like Rocket Gibraltar in the field, had Galileo, Monjeu at the time. His achievements, like, he didn't come from like normal stock, as you would say, to expect. You wouldn't have expected Aidan O'Brien at, say, 20 years of age to become the amazing trainer that he has become worldwide. You wouldn't have expected it, all those Group 1s.
That's a very good point, because People will say, like Donncha and Aidan, like they're privileged, you know, what they came from. But let's go back one generation here. Aidan did not come from...
No, he didn't.
You know, he didn't. So whatever Donncha and Joseph, and they work extremely hard, but whatever they inherited was actually through the greatness of their parents, in particular Aidan.
And like, he married Anne-Marie, and obviously she came from the Crowleys and, you know, the background in racing. But I think the story was that Aidan O'Brien was a very successful jumps trainer with Life at Lord and that, and that's where I think he caught the attention of the likes of John Magnier and that. And I think when he went to Coolmore in the first instance, of course he was taken over from MV. There's no relation between Vincent O'Brien and Aidan O'Brien. There was the story that he didn't take a day off for 2 years. Now, I do think he should take days off, folks. I do think he should have a work-life balance.
I think he never takes days off, though. Even when
I suppose he lives there, and like
he always wants to go back there as well. He said, regardless of where I'm.
But it's home. It's home with it's a strange situation where it's home with the racing, you know, complex there as well, and then you've like the Jinsky stable and you know that kind of thing, and you know, so it is a kind of a legacy thing. But he was still training Easterby to win 3 champion hurdles when he was doing, you know, the early stages of his flat training. Like, he's had the likes of Kieran Fallon there, he's had Ryan Moore, he's gone through all these jockeys, Mick Hannan, remember Johannesburg, like winning the Derby. The Derby now for Aidan O'Brien to win with Anthony Van Dyke this year is almost seen as a kind of a given. The Derby has been going at Epsom since 1780. 1780, like, not 1980, 1780, and when he won his first Derby with Galileo, I think in 2001, it wasn't really a done thing. John Ox had done it with Sindar the year before. MV had won it 6 times, but it wasn't really a regular occurrence. Now Aidan O'Brien is farming the Derby. I think they probably, Coolmore have probably seen off the sheikhs to a degree. It used to be very much Sheikh Mohammed, Henry Cecil in the 80s, that kind of thing. Or you had the Mactooms with Dick Hearn, Willie Carson. Coolmore have become probably the leading breeding and racing operation in the world of flat racing through Aidan O'Brien's genius. And I think what I learned from him when I was down there, Johnny, was he has an innate understanding of a horse's personality. That, like, it's Dr. Dolittle stuff. No, I don't have it. And I think, you know, I wouldn't say, you know, you might have it, I don't know if you have it or not.
No.
But he has a bit, like, you can judge a horse race, I can judge a horse race, you can judge a good horse. But this is another planet entirely of being able to understand the animal as temperament. And I think that is the secret. And obviously with dedication, hard work, and just a civility and a humility about it. And it's not a fall humility. It's a humility of, look, we send Mendelssohn to Kentucky and we just got absolutely murdered here. But we'll learn for the next time, and we'll go back again.
And it's like what Stuart Lancaster said there, you know, learning more from your mistakes and your successes.
And I'm sure there have been tough days and tough conversations that he's had with both the people in Coolmore and with his jockeys, and to be able to, like, Joseph is now training horses as a successful national hunt trainer.
Just 500 winners.
Just 500 winners. And he's ridden, like, it's hard to kind of get your head around, like, Joseph O'Brien is ridden Derby winner. He's ridden Derby, like 2 of them, I think, Camelot in Australia, if I'm right. So for the family, that it's just an amazing story, and like, and also as well, like, he's just such a gentleman. I've met him a couple of times. He's always very, like, decent around interviews, and he's just always very polite. He's interested to know who you are. Always turns up at the sports awards at the end of the year with the family.
Makes a point of kind of knowing your name as well.
Yeah, makes a point of that. And just because somebody is unassuming and nice and polite doesn't mean we should underestimate their achievements, because he really is, like, I think there was a Racing Post poll done a few years ago, who was the greatest racing person of the 20th century? And I think it was Vincent O'Brien. Well, Aidan O'Brien will be up there. Like, Aidan O'Brien is one of our greatest sports stars. Now, I'm a racing head, maybe I'm biased, but I don't think there are many greater Irish sporting stars than Aidan O'Brien.
Yeah.
Because this is a global sport that he's brought Ireland's name, a good name, around the world. And it's funny then, as Joseph trains a Bob Byrne Cup winner with his horse second.
There's Barry Geraghty with Aidan. JD is going to stay with us now. We're going to very shortly go over to Geneva with Dan and Richie. So much to discuss, particularly about Mick McCarthy, and here he's discussing his role, rather the role if Glenn Whelan and Matt Doherty will play, if any, in Geneva tonight.
Just on the midfield, given Glenn Whelan's, for want of a better term, advancing years, I'm just wondering if 2 games in the space of 4 days are still within his wheelhouse at the moment.
I think if you ask that question directly to him, he might punch you on the nose, to be quite honest. I'm being amazed. He's been remarkable. And I think he's a model pro. He's a really good athlete. He looks after himself. And if he plays tomorrow, It will not be a problem.
Did Matt Doherty do enough on the left on Saturday to push his way into your thinking ahead of Enda Stevens coming back from suspension?
I think you get the team sheets an hour and a half before kick-off, do you? Or maybe earlier for you guys, so I don't know. You'll find out tomorrow.
I actually got a message in from Izul Cody. What is even worse about last night's game is the suggestion by Balakov that he didn't hear the racist chants, which is just very difficult. Dan and Richie, has there been much chat over there about what happened in the Sofia game, in the sense that nobody seems to be talking about the 6-0?
Well, we've just kind of heard word of it filtering through while we were making our way out of the press centre in the Stade de Genève last night, that the game had been halted a couple of times and that there'd been racist abuse. As regards the fallout from it, I was actually watching a bit of English TV this morning when I woke up. It's kind of interesting to note the dichotomy of views on how the approach of the England players was taken. I mean, there are some players saying that, you know, the way they went about it is right and that this is a kind of benchmark for the game in terms of how it deals with racist abuse. And there are others, like ex-black players as well, that say, listen, still, nothing's going to happen because of this. Like, this is still going to remain entrenched. And when you hear Krasimir Balakov, the Bulgarian manager, basically saying that, you know, he didn't hear Anton. You know, Popov, as captain, went over to the stands and had to plead with some fans to try and tell them to stop. You know, so if he's not speaking to his captain, or if his captain isn't informing him of how bad this problem actually is to the point that he needs to go and intervene, then there's a major issue. There's also, I don't know if you saw this morning as well, there's some press conference footage of Gareth Southgate doing the rounds of one of the journalists, one of the Bulgarian journalists, asking him, you know, the game was very friendly. Like, we didn't hear anything. I think you're over exaggerating and you're making a meal out of this. And, you know, it's that kind of nonsense that is basically going to keep on this kind of behaviour in that part of Europe, you know.
Yeah, this feels a bit like one of those kind of news shows where I'm going from one sort of opposing opinion to the other, both of them on Skype. But Dan, are you going to give kind of a similar version to Richie on the Irish game tonight, or does everyone think that we're kind of in jeopardy here and essentially we're going to lose?
No, I think this is a type of news programme where where their presenter gives their opinion all the time. Like, that's what it is, you know? So,
yeah.
I mean, I don't think it's a massive... Yeah, Ivan Yates or something on Fox, John. Like, you know, you're very versatile in terms of what I can describe you as.
Right, okay. You did give... I had to enjoy page 54 where you give an Ireland and then in brackets probable team, because picking a probable team for tonight is not an easy job.
No, I mean, I thought it was pretty easy in Georgia, and I think most people got their probable team correct. But tonight, I fully expect to be wrong. I think it's a bit of a challenge. I nearly hope that there's a wild card sort of option there tonight, and it's not predictable because I think, you know, Switzerland are pretty good. Switzerland should have more points than they have, and they probably are the best team in the group. And you know, I think we need something more than just making one or two changes and hoping for the best. Now, to be fair to Mick McCarthy, like, I think that there will be a game plan. I don't think that they're just, you know, that the Mick McCarthy and sort of Terry Connor team are just going to sort of wing it, you know, like predecessors might have in circumstances, and sort of hope that the players can sort it out on the pitch. You know, that's not going to be the case. But there's a lot of discussion about Aaron Connolly, who I think will start. I think the real interesting aspect is that Mick McCarthy said he doesn't want him to be isolated. He wants him to receive some support. And I'm just wondering who that support will be in terms of, I guess, number 10 is the populist way of describing it, but that sort of attacking midfielder that maybe keeps talking about one up front and one in behind, and I'm trying to figure out who that might be. And this is where Callum Robinson or Alan Bryan or Alan Judge come into it. And I just think that the plan overall, touched on this a bit with Richie and Steve-O last night, that the team just needs to be a bit more compact in its shape and not have the gaps that were there in Switzerland last month. So does that mean the both wingers are vulnerable from Saturday? It's you know, it's possible that could be one scenario, but yeah, you kind of hope that there's a master plan that's been cooked up in the background for this particular game, because making the same mistakes as last month would be criminal.
Richie, you were in Tbilisi as well. What kind of frustrated me about Mick McCarthy after the game was that he put a positive spin on it, which is fine, but it was almost as if he didn't understand how viable it was to get 3 points against a team who can score, as opposed to trying to get 3 points tonight away to Switzerland, and that was sort of why I was frustrated after it.
I think I don't think he views these games as equals. I don't think he's like saying that every game, and every side in this group is absolutely on the level, same level. But I get the sense that, much like Damien Delaney was talking about in the show last night, he thought that, listen, we'll have at least a point in Georgia. If we get 3, we manage to pull it off, brilliant. Then we'll go and see what we can do in the last couple of games. And with Dan, I'm interested to see how he changes the approach for tonight, because he does need to get players to be on the ball more, to use the ball better. He mentioned it, that they weren't happy themselves in midfield and how they performed in Tbilisi. And to be honest, and I mentioned it yesterday morning, they offered nothing. And so I'm kind of interested to see who he has to support Aaron Connolly and how he reshapes the midfields to accommodate that, because the more I've kind of thought about it, it's something I mentioned to John as well in News Talk Breakfast. I kind of have a sneaking suspicion, because McCarthy, we were talking yesterday, he'd want to make minimal changes. Like Enda Stevens, we can be damn sure is going to come back in the left side of the defence. We know that Connolly is more than likely going to start. I can't see him making 3 changes or more, because then it kind of seems like panic stations. So with that in mind, I'm kind of imagining someone like Jeff Hendrick or McLean, who have played in that role before, supporting the main striker. And personally, I wouldn't be fond of either of them doing that. But I can see that will be the role that they will have to possibly pursue tonight.
Yeah, is McLean vulnerable tonight, Dan?
This is one of the things I think it's worth looking at. Some of the grief that McLean getting, in the sense he's done nothing in this campaign. Ireland wouldn't have got a point against Switzerland without James.
Absolutely.
Last month. But I do wonder, is there a sort of half an argument to keep him in reserve for later on, when the game actually almost applying the argument to the other night, that with Aaron Connolly, in a very different way, in a more blunt way, that if Switzerland are getting a bit more tired and the game is getting a bit more stretched, that actually maybe McLean at that stage and his energy, he could be an interesting impact sub. He could sort of rattle a few cages. But I think Mick McCarthy really feels that the service that McLean offered in terms of covering ground and his energy and his ability to get back and defend for a tough away game, I still sort of feel he'd probably play him. But I do think there's a different type of option there on the left might allow the team to play a bit more narrow through the middle and look to the full-backs for the width. But I'm not sure that is something that he will do. He probably should be vulnerable.
Surely O'Dowda must be knocking on the door at this stage in some position or other.
Yeah, O'Dowda's one who hasn't really he hasn't pushed on in this campaign. Now, the problem for O'Dowda was that when he probably had his opportunity around March and summer, he was in the bad books of Bristol City and went a long run without a game. And to be honest, he hasn't. Callum O'Dowda, sort of the first 6 months of last season, was probably one of the top players in the championship. It's not an exaggeration, but he hasn't really played that much since. He still hasn't got back into the Bristol City side since signing a new contract, so he sort of hasn't progressed. And he's someone who can sort of run with the ball and carry a ball, and part of me wondered if he almost would be another wild card sort of option that could play centrally but support a striker. That's another name to mention, but he's probably more comfortable on the right, and yes, Robinson has played there, so it doesn't seem like he's mad up his thoughts. He's madly prominent in McCarthy's thoughts, but he's another one who's definitely got plenty of ability. I wouldn't be sad to see him come in at all.
Richie, what have the press conferences been like, and I guess interviews with staff? Because to me there appear to be echoes of the O'Neill era, where you have a kind of a slightly prickly type atmosphere, particularly McCarthy, kind of as Dan has in the back page today. It doesn't feel like we're one win from the Euros. Ireland boss can't understand why his excitement isn't shared. I would argue it's hard to be bloody excited about this team at the moment.
Yeah, I mentioned it to Emmett Malone, the Irish Times, yesterday afterwards, when McCarthy came out with that comment that, we may be 1 win away from qualifying for the Euros, but we're also probably 2 games away from not doing, and that's the reality that faces us. But, to be fair, he is right. There is a sense that we are, 90 minutes away from playing Euros on home soil. Why aren't we excited about that? The problem is we put in performances like we did against Georgia on Saturday, and that really has dampened expectations coming into here. We put in performances like we did in the majority of the home game against Switzerland, which, you know, for all the rallying of falling behind and the late David McGoldrick goal, we were pretty poor for a chunk of that game, and we have been pretty poor for chunks of other games too. That is kind of the worry coming into playing what Dan has pointed out there, the two best sides in the group. We're playing them away and home over the course of the next month or so, and that's a very, very difficult ask to try and get 3 points from the two of those and try and qualify above them for the Euros. One thing I will mention as well that may do work in our favour, so I know a couple of people that are down in ground level for training last night, and they said that the pitch in Geneva here isn't great. It's been absolutely tipping it down since, I think, the wee small hours in the morning, and is going to continue to do so for the rest of the day. That pitch ain't going to be great this evening. We saw before, if you cast your mind back to 2008, what torrential rain can do to the pitches here in Switzerland. So you never know. It could be one of those weird quirks that ends up working in our slightly clay-footed favour. Slightly clay-footed, yeah. It's kind of that grim narrative that the pitch may be crap and that's going to help us because it'll bring them down to our level. Dan, sure, listen, you take what you can. Yeah, no, unfortunately you're right. Dan, I was behind the goal for the game Tbilisi, and I was behind the goal for the first half against Switzerland, so I was behind the Irish defence, and what really strikes me is when the defenders get on the ball, particularly the fullbacks, their options are so limited, be it going down the wing because maybe the wingers are kind of coming back into defence positions, or quite simply the midfielders are not looking for the ball. Can you get your head around why these talented midfielders just go through games like they did against Georgia with virtually no impact in terms of actually getting the foot on the ball?
No, I mean it's a frustration, you know, and look, it hasn't worked in those couple of games, and I'm not so sure that it's like a tactical demand. I mean, you know, at times I think maybe in the previous regime there might have been times where, you know, it was very much about sort of turning and getting up the pitch and trying to turn the team. But on Saturday there was a couple of times where Hendrick and Conor Heron, you know, they were trying to get forward, but not really, like, not constructively, and then they were getting ahead of the game, and Georgia were winning the ball, and Ireland were exposed, and as I said, there was these big gaps, and like I don't know what you would describe it as. It's players not taking responsibility or having belief in themselves, and I know the pitch wasn't great on Saturday, and maybe, you know, a sort of lack of belief kicks in that players don't want to be, I don't know, getting into positions where you could give cheap position away in your own half. I don't know. Like you'd need to be in a proper discussion, probably away from the microphones, really, with people involved in the squad to understand why they feel they struggled in that area. Dan, I know you're a big fan of rugby and all that, but do you remember Brian O'Driscoll's 3 tries in Paris that time? No. You actually genuinely don't remember that? I've seen them on reading in the years. Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. Do you remember them, Richie?
Yes, I do. Yeah, I remember watching them in front room home. Yeah.
Not sure what year that was. The lads might be able to help me on that.
2000, was it?
It was 2000.
2000, Johnny. Come on.
Is there a chance? Is there? I love reading in the years. I love reading in the years, and so does RT because it has it on every second night. But is there a chance? Is there a chance that Aaron Connolly could have a performance tonight that has us going, oh my God, what do we have our hands on here? But Johnny, I think, you know, you've become sort of like somewhat obsessed with that prospect. I mean, I haven't at all. You posted a beautiful picture of the Tbilisi skyline the other day and managed to equate it with Aaron Connolly. I'm not sure I was trying to do any equating there. It was just like I want to post a nice image and make a relevant point about the game. A young boy from Galway who's made it big, similar to yourself. Wow. Like it is.
Johnny can never be described as making anything big, can he?
Or being young. Dan, just answer the question. Could Connolly announce himself in an OMG type performance tonight? He's come a long way. Well, I mean, I would hope that the OMG expression wouldn't be used in any circumstance. You hope so. It's a great story. Like, it's something that everyone would latch onto, and it would completely change the language around the team. If Connolly had stuck that chance away late on Saturday, the whole mood would have changed, and it would have been about Aaron Connolly. And the details, a lot of the details of the match would sort of have been forgotten, albeit temporarily, but people would have latched on to this positive story. You'd like to think so, but I mean, it's a lot to expect as well, that all of a sudden, well, this is a Messiah type figure who can make it happen.
Is he a Messiah type figure, Richie?
No. And nor should he be viewed as such. He's a 19-year-old kid, and he might be somebody who can dig us out of a hole in the last couple of games of this European qualifying campaign. But let's not forget, we have a raft of players of his age and his caliber coming through once Stephen Kenny gets the job, and the hope is that kind of level of dynamism won't be solely on Connolly's shoulders.
What do you predict tonight, Dan?
I fancy Switzerland, to be honest. I think they should have more points than they have, and for them, I think McCarthy did make the point, and you can swing this, interpret this in ways that you could encourage Ireland. I think his line was, it's not a do or die game. Well, actually, it is for them. And that's true in the sense that if Switzerland don't win tonight, if it's a draw tonight, Switzerland are relying on favours, which is a strange position for a team to be in that probably should be nearly through already on the balance of play in their games. And I just think when it comes down to it, at home, they might just produce the performance, and Ireland might just regret what happened on Saturday. I want to be wrong, but that's you asked for a prediction, and that is my prediction.
Richie?
I'm the most pessimistic so-and-so at best of times, and will always look on the dark side.
Dark side?
A slight sneaking suspicion that we're going to nick something tonight, and I'll be honest, I think we could actually come away from here with a win. I don't really have any evidence to base it on. It's just, I don't think there's as bad a performance coming tonight that we saw from that Irish side on Saturday. I think we will improve. I think Connolly will make a difference to the side, and I think the very nature of us being one game away, McCarthy talked about it being cup final for Switzerland. I don't think he'll put it to the players in those terms, but the fact that we are one win away from qualifying for the Euros, I think is going to be something that the players are well aware of and will hopefully use to their advantage.
Thanks a million, guys.
Cheers, John.
Cheers, John.
That was Richie McCormack and Dan McDonnell live from Geneva, and now it's time for the next episode of Richard's Rugger. It's all with thanks to Vodafone Rugby, team of us, everybody in. Enjoy.
Yeah, G Hook here with Off the Ball Rugby coverage in association with Vodafone, team of us, everyone up my arse. Well, of course, Ireland's prize for losing to Japan in the pool stages is a meeting in the quarter-finals with the back-to-back world champions and the best team on the planet by some distance, New Zealand, and they haven't even got into gear yet. Well, I suppose if we can control the set piece, if we can get Johnny Sexton involved, if we can get the back three involved, we've a good chance of not losing by more than 50. If you ask me, we still haven't replaced Jackie Kyle at out half. We haven't replaced Ken Goodall at number 8, or indeed the great Tom Kiernan at full back. Well, of course, a man who knows a lot about World Cup disasters joins me now. Eddie O'Sullivan. Eddie, of course, you were in charge of the great disaster in 2007 for Ireland. And, of course, you were USA Eagles coach in 2011. And in the warm-ups for that particular World Cup, you were defeated 87 points to 8 by the England Saxons, effectively the England B team. I'd call that a bit of a pasting. Would you, Eddie?
Well, I wouldn't say that. We had a poor ref really on the day, a few harsh calls that could have really turned the game for us. We gave them a damn good rattle, and they are vulnerable, the England Saxons, when you put it up to them.
Yeah. And did you put it up to them, Eddie?
Well, yeah, they really only pulled away from us in the last 68 minutes.
Yeah, well, Johnny Sexton, of course, in the press conference was saying he couldn't understand the negativity, the criticism, comparing this Ireland team with the disaster of 2007. Couldn't remember the date there for a second. When you were Ireland coach, Eddie, when we just squeezed past Namibia, didn't we? Just squeezed past them, Eddie.
Yeah, but George, like, we won at the end of the day, you know, like a win is a win.
You've been quite critical of Joe Schmidt, though, haven't you, Eddie? But I suppose one thing he has done is he's used his entire squad. You didn't really believe in the squad system. You had your favourite 15, which came back to bite you on the posterior. You didn't pick Heaslip. You dropped Hickey for Gavin Duffy against Argentina. And, of course, you famously dropped Jordan Murphy, who was described by many as the George Best of international rugby.
Yeah, look, you know, winning the World Cup, you know, it's all about gaining the trust of the players, you know. I remember saying to Jordan Murphy before I dropped him, I said, look, Jordan, you're a confidence player, you know, I get that. And what you need is someone to nurture that ability, to take you under their wing and keep reminding you how good you are, you know. So will you ever go and find someone who'll do that for you and give me a shout when you're sorted?
Yeah, Eddie, in an attempt to return to sanity, can I ask you this? How can Ireland defeat this New Zealand side, like?
Yeah, well, you know, it's all about the nuts and bolts. The nuts and bolts up front, you know, earn you the right to go wide, you know, the soft touches and the hard edge, get the job done. You know, you got to spread them out wide and to go through them, you know, pick the soft shoulders, go around the corner. You know, you got to go forward, you know, it has to be a go forward ball, you have to be on the front foot. It's if it's not, you know, you got to dig your heels in, and otherwise you spend most of the time going backwards on your toes. You can't grate cheese with a rope, you know.
Yeah, Eddie, they say you learn more from your defeats than your victories. You must be a genius. But what does it all mean, Eddie? What does it all mean at the end of the day, like?
Yeah, you know, what does it mean? I mean, that's a $6 million question, isn't it? You know, I remember saying to the lads in Biarritz just before I resigned. You know, I said to them, you know, I just looked at them and I said, look, you know, you can't tell if a kiwi is ripe by looking at a banana, you know. I mean, you can't wear gloves on your feet, you know. Sometimes you got to cook what you have in the pan before you throw in the garlic, you know. You got to make sure the raft is anchored before you jump off the canoe. You can't wear socks in your hands, you know. I mean, a lighthouse isn't a windmill without arms, you know. And they knew what I meant by that, which was relief, you know. I can tell you.
That's all I can tolerate from you, Eddie. That's enough of the old cod's wallop. Well, we leave it there. So, and of course, Eddie will be omnipresent throughout the rest of the World Cup. In fact, you won't be able to turn on any device without hearing his voice or seeing his mush. Thank you, Eddie. What a job. How come I'm not on the telly anymore? I've certainly got the face for it, like. What happened there?
Richard's rugger thing.
On Off the Ball.
With Vodafone, official sponsors of the Irish Rugby team. Team of us. Everyone in.
It's great to have him back, George.
You enjoyed that, didn't you?
Like, to have Richard Cooper on this platform is just... and Eddie O'Sullivan reacted well to it as well. I'm not sure how Joe Malloy reacted to his caricature.
He's taking time off.
Yeah, I think Joe was probably taken aback by how good he was at doing Joe. Here's Eddie O'Sullivan. Richard, what you continue to forget is you can't climb a ladder without a wall. It is good to react well to these things. But yeah, Richard is just... Do you remember Richard's first proper appearance on Irish TV screens?
No, I just remember après match.
Before that, long before that.
No, enlighten me.
Sean, it's 3 o'clock in the morning. Yeah, but it's breakfast time back home.
He was in that ad?
That was Richard Cooper. If I'm wrong on that, I stand corrected. But I'm pretty certain that was Richard Cooper.
He's the one cooking.
If Richard is listening in, nearly sure I'm right on that. Cooking the sausages at 3 in the morning.
He's been in a food-related programme since. He was in that one with Dawn French on Sky One called Delicious. A love interest for Dawn French.
Who's his best impression?
Ooh, I like Hook.
Joe Schmidt was off the charts.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive.
Joe Malloy?
Yeah. No, I'm thinking back to, I always loved his billow. I went to see them in Vicar Street when they first kind of started doing the circuit, the live shows.
The après match boys.
Yeah, I went to see them and it was brilliant.
You're a really good impressionist as well, apparently.
You can't.
I don't like putting you on the spot, but I want to put you on the spot
Richard.
here.
It's like going from a steak dinner to a cheap.
Is it going to be an Eddie O'Sullivan analogy here?
Euro-saver hamburger, nobody wants to see.
Richie McCormack is very, very good at impressions.
See, myself and Richie for a long time sat beside each other.
Is he better than you?
I think so, yeah.
What's your coup de grace, as it were?
No, we bounce a few of them off each other where we just talk to each other in different characters. You throw in a bit of David O'Leary. Richie does a very good Roy Hodgson. Suey, there's just certain words that he says, but I'm not gonna.
Can you give one of your news stories in a Suey?
No, I can't. So there's only certain words with Suey that you can do.
Plus, anyone then. You can do anyone.
No, I can't be put on
I'm
the
not going to put you on the spot, but I'm going to put you on a spot among all of the spots where you might.
Are we moving on here?
No. Minimal changes away to the Swiss in Switzerland. We never go out to win a game anyway, unless no alternative. Exception v France in Henri handball. It will be the same old try to nick one and hold on from Eamon Murphy.
Yeah, there's a. You think back to I was in Cardiff the night we beat Wales. Yeah. And there was a lot of things that went in our favour that night, where
the fact that we assaulted football, for one thing.
Yeah, well, Joe Allen went off injured. Remember, that was a big turning point. At the time, he was quite pivotal for their team. But
he was playing well that night.
Yeah, and he was controlling things in midfield, so he went off, and it just seemed to get to them. And then what we did well was we put pressure on the likes of Ashley Williams and Wayne Hennessy, and that's where the mistake came from, where Hendrick pressed it, and great finish from James McLean. But even that night, as amazing as it was, and we had a good night in Cardiff.
It wasn't amazing. It was
the result.
Yeah, the result was 1-0 in Cardiff, fair enough.
All these kind of performances paper over the cracks of what has been happening with Irish football for so long. So I've kind of accepted it. I know it's not something that I want to accept, but I've accepted that Mick is going to approach these games the way he's going to approach them, and if we get to the Euros, then he might have a bit of time to bring in a few players, and then when the Euros are over, Stephen Kenny has obviously developed this 21s group a bit more as well.
That's the theory. It was good to see Stephen Kenny, and I think as Leo O'Connor saying, we're disappointed not to win the game. And to be honest, they could have beaten Italy. Now, I'm not saying Ireland playing Italy seniors is the same thing. No. But in fairness to Kenny, he does inculcate that self-belief that we will never go out feeling inferior, even in Toulon against a vastly inferior Brazil side. We will not feel inferior. And you contrast that to Mick saying Georgia are a very good side. Georgia are not a very good side. They cannot score. Cannot score. And we were worried about defending corners against them rather than playing Connolly, according to Mick. Do we have Mick McCarthy here? Actually, here is Mick talking about Here is Mick talking about the 0-0 draw with Georgia.
Your last game was in Georgia. Did you lose there something, or did you win there something?
We won a point.
And you were satisfied, or?
Yes, I was. If you'd have asked me prior to the tournament starting that we'd have got 4 points from Georgia, I would have took that. The lads would admit they were disappointed actually the way we played with the ball. We could have been better. Had we been better, it doesn't mean to say that we would have won. Darren didn't have a save to make, our goalkeeper. We had arguably the best chances in the game. But yes, we won a point. It's put us in a good position, I think you'll say.
Yeah. See, what could end up happening is we pull off a bit of a minor miracle, get a win, qualify.
Get a win against who?
Against Switzerland tonight. Mick could be at his post-match press conference, feet up, glass of bubbly.
Yeah,
just looking at everyone going, you.
Out.
Peddlers of doom.
Yeah.
We'll see you at the Euros next summer.
There he is, taking a photograph.
Yeah, so...
We travelled a long way to Tbilisi.
It can be soul destroying. I was in the...
Everything was brilliant about the holiday except the reason
it's a great
we
place
went
actually, isn't it?
Oh, I love Tbilisi, but everything was amazing except the reason we went there.
Yeah.
The actual game.
Because I went there for Martin O'Neill's first game, competitive game, so that we got out of jail that night with the McGeady wonder goal. Then I was there 2 years ago when we drew 1-1 and it was dour stuff. I think we'd 60 passes in the first half. I remember I had the stats when I went to interview Harry Arter, and I said
60 passes.
60. We attempted 60 passes, or we completed 60 passes in the first half. And when I said that to him, he looked embarrassed. He was almost like, oof.
But Phil, when we beat, like, I remember putting out a tweet after the Georgia game at home. Now, it was a bit tongue-in-cheek, but we 2 shots on target at home to Georgia. Like, I didn't think we were great in that game. Now,
I think that night
we were okay. We tried.
played with a bit of it seemed like we had a plan, though.
Georgia are a very limited side. They play nice football, but they've no end product.
No, they seem to panic when they get in the final third.
Do you want to give us some sports news?
Yeah, well, obviously,
in the Suey voice.
No, I can't do that. But look, we know. Richard is in for a reason. Leave it to him.
I guarantee you.
Now, if the
next few weeks, I'll get it out of you, and I'll record it in a clandestine
full Mick
manner.
McCarthy press conference tomorrow.
Yeah.
If we qualify for the Euros.
You can do Mick. Mick's not the hardest to do.
No, there's a few different.
You're very
variations.
good at Mick, according to Tommy Rooney.
Yeah. I think Tommy,
So, Mick, you've got the 1-0 win in Switzerland.
Save it for tomorrow. Save it for tomorrow.
Okay, so if Ireland win, you will give us a Mick.
Yeah.
So you won't be giving us a Mick?
No.
Okay. What's the sports news?
Well, obviously that is the big game tonight in Geneva. 7:45 kickoff. We know Enda Stevens is likely to come back in because he missed the game in Tbilisi due to suspension. But let's be honest, all eyes are going to be on the team sheet for one name and one name only.
And he will start, but where?
He better start.
He will start.
So, look...
James McLean.
Yeah. If he does start, I'll be happy enough whether he plays out in the left or up front.
Where are you thinking?
Aaron Connolly. I don't know, because they play 3 at the back, so what kind of space will he get on the right-hand side of their defence? They're going to bring Lichtsteiner out, and Mbabu will probably come back in. He replaced him in Copenhagen on Saturday. So
I'd love to see Connolly and Robinson and O'Dowd as our front 3, and that'd be throwing everything out the window in terms of how we play. But God, that's actually fairly exciting.
But the problem is, Johnny, you need the ball, and we don't have.
You do and you don't. You can just, if you get the ball to the front 3. That's something we don't do as it is. Just get the ball to the front 3. They have enough sort of pace and skill about them, that front 3, which won't start tonight.
Yeah.
Whereas we're more kind of built to deal with our own limitations as McCarthy sees us.
Yeah. And sometimes a ball down the channel, which is almost 60-40 in the defender's favour. But if you're a defender, it can force you into a mistake, especially if Connolly's snapping at your heels.
Absolutely. Every time I hear about the channel, it reminds me of. So I'm going to do an impression. When Brian Clough was giving out to one of his wingers, he's like, "But boss, I thought you wanted me to make the runs down the channel." And he's like, "The only channel you'll be going down is the English channel, unless you book up your ideas."
I've heard your Clough. That's not bad.
At least I gave an impression. You wouldn't even give me a Mick McCarthy. It's one of the easier ones to do.
Anyway,
you'll be in the English channel unless you book up your ideas.
7:45 kickoff. Before that, at 4 o'clock, Stephen Kenny's under-21s are away to Iceland. 10 points from 4 games, unbeaten in the European qualifiers so far. No Aaron Connolly, obviously, and no Troy Parrott because of the
sending
off against Italy last Thursday. Last night, England's 6-0 win away to Bulgaria was overshadowed by racist chants from a section of the Bulgarian supporters. The match was stopped twice. There was monkey chants aimed towards Tyrone Mings and Raheem Sterling. They were reported to the referee. So the protocol, there was 2 steps of UEFA's anti-racism protocol carried out. The third and final step of the protocol is to call the game off. The England players were asked, did they want to leave the pitch? But they actually said, no, we don't want to. We want to continue.
It's such a difficult position for them to be in, because I would imagine if I were a black player, my inclination would be, I'm walking off the pitch here because this need to make an example of this. But then I was like, just get the win and get the bloody hell out of here. And
you see, the problem is these Bulgarian fans, this section of Bulgarian fans, you could see them walking out of the ground. They had done what they came to do. So if the game was called off, they'd be even happier with themselves. I think Gareth Southgate handled it well, and the fact that he just said to the players, what do you think? And if the players were happy enough to continue, it's not a situation that you would wish upon anyone. But if the players are saying, look, no, we're not going to walk off, we're going to finish this game. And not because it was an easy game for them.
No, they emerged with great credit as well. You see Nazi salutes at games in Europe this day and age. I mean, I don't know what the rules are in Bulgaria, but I presume that there should be incitement to hatred going on there if those people are identified.
I mean, it doesn't help where you've got the manager saying he didn't hear them. I mean, I was watching the game on TV, I could hear it.
Grim.
So the fact that he was even closer and he couldn't hear it, I'm not convinced by that. There was friendly international action last night, and Northern Ireland beat the Czech Republic 3-2 to record their first away win in a friendly for 13 years. 2 goals for Paddy McNair. Second goal was particularly impressive. Johnny Evans scored as well. Cristiano Ronaldo reached a career landmark. He scored his 700th goal as Portugal lost 2-1 to Ukraine. That was a European qualifier. So he scored 700 times in 973 matches.
It's insane.
It's pretty impressive. I'm trying to think of the best goals, but there's so many of them to think back on. Welshman Nigel Owens has been confirmed as the referee for Ireland's Rugby World Cup quarter-final against New Zealand in Tokyo on Saturday.
Ireland are happy enough with that?
Yeah, we know that Bundy Aki won't be available after the 3-week ban he received for the red card he picked up against Samoa. Now, the IRFU have 48 hours to appeal the suspension. They're still waiting on the written judgment on the ban before they decide on an appeal. You'd imagine that they're wasting their time there. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Michael Conlon will finally get a chance to take on Vladimir Nikitin at Madison Square Garden on the 14th of December. The Russian controversially beat Conlon at the Rio Olympics. The two were due to meet in Belfast in August, but then Nikitin withdrew due to a torn bicep, but it's been put forward again for the 14th of December in New York. And
a little bit of
it's a fight that Conlon doesn't need. He's so far ahead of Nikitin in terms of his development in the pro ranks, but he wants it. He just wants to. It's just
set the record straight.
Bit of closure. Yeah. Just finally with a bit of GAA news. DJ Kerry, we knew this was going to happen, but it was confirmed last night. He has joined Brian Cody's backroom team for next season.
Exciting prospect.
Absolutely. And Michael Maher has been appointed the new London senior football manager. He takes over from Kieran Daly. He's London's first London-born manager. So
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I actually remember a few years ago he was at one of the launches, and London had that really good season where they got to the Connacht final, and the manager Paul Coggins at the time said it wouldn't be long before the 15 players playing for London were all born in London. Now it hasn't happened yet, but certainly it wouldn't surprise me if it happened in a few years.
Prediction for tonight?
I probably kind of thinking Switzerland 2-0.
2-0 to Switzerland. So we are going to get a Mick McCarthy off you if Ireland win tonight. That's
absolutely
fair enough.
I'd probably come in, if I had hair I could spray paint it grey and come in like a really crude, like give him the camera, give him the full one. But I'll do what I can do, see what I can do.
He is very good at impressions. I will tell you that, dear listener, and we will get it out of him yet. And that is it for us this morning. Stay tuned to Off the Ball and OTB Sports Radio throughout the day. The Rugby World Cup show is live with Neil Tracy coming up at 12. And at 1 p.m, we're launching season 2 of Leaders' Questions with Stuart Lancaster, which sounds very good, actually.
He's an impressive bloke.
Yeah, it's just in that little clip with Ger there. Just not the usual kind of buzzwords or rhetoric you might get from sports personality. That's in association with Goal, the charity, and so season 2 of Leaders' Questions with Stuart Lancaster. That is from 1 p.m. If you've missed anything from OTB AM this morning, the sports page is Cian Healy speaking this morning in Tokyo, just Cian on his own in the press conference. Rugby with Louise Galvin, who came into the studio. Football with Dan and Richie, both of whom are in Geneva. And you can catch the podcast back on offtheball.com/podcasts or the Go Loud app, or watch it back on our YouTube channel and subscribe while you're at it. Tonight on Off the Ball live from 7 p.m, Monday Night Rugby, the football show, and much more. I stand corrected on that. Tonight we have live commentary, and the commentary is from Richie and Steve-O. So that's going to be something to look forward to. It'd be interesting to hear the two boys commentating on what's going to be a very interesting night for Ireland, possibly a historic night for Mick McCarthy. And you do have to remember, it's possibly his penultimate game as Ireland manager. So if he is feeling the pressure a little bit with the view to his future, we will exonerate him a bit. But yeah, so tonight we will have live commentary for the game. We'll see you tomorrow morning on OTBM at 7:30. Dave McIntyre in studio, and we'll have all the reaction to Ireland-Switzerland with Dame Delaney Rugby and much, much more too.
OTB AM. This
is OTB Sport.